Chapter 1196. Peng Zhijing did not notice the two's evil intentions. She just happened to see a feather duster, and immediately rushed over to grab it. Then she pointed at the two and said, "Apologize to me right now." "Apologize? Are you crazy? The person who got hit was me, not you. You still have the nerve to ask us to apologize." Brother Wang stood up with the help of his friend, and looked at her like she was an idiot. Peng Zhijing snorted coldly. "I'm not asking you to apologize to me. I want you to admit that what you said just now was false and promise that you won't speak ill of others behind their backs." "Who do you think you are? Was he an honorable man? But others don't care as much as you do," Brother Wang muttered. "No, you two have the nerve to speak ill of others, but don't have the nerve to admit it. You can't even be considered men. Don't speak ill of others behind their backs. Even a 3-year-old child would understand this principle. I think you should go back to the furnace and be reborn." Peng Zhijing held the feather duster, and really wanted to give each of them a good beating. Hearing this, the two laughed. Brother Wang slowly walked towards her. "If you want to know whether we are men or not, it's very simple. Just follow us." Peng Zhijing watched as the two approached with ill intentions. Alarm bells rang in her heart. "What do you want to do?" "Well, hee." At this moment, in the meeting room of Linlang Pavilion, all the managers were gathered together, waiting for the boss to give instructions. The boss behind Linlang Pavilion was none other than Xiao. At this moment, he was flipping through the accounts for the past 2 days. Everyone did not dare to make a sound, and waited with bated breath. However, at this moment, a guard walked in and reported to his master, "Lord, the princess is fighting with someone here." Xiao's hand that was flipping through the pages paused. He felt a headache coming on. When will this troublemaker stop? Bring her in. Yes. Peng Zhijing saw that the situation was not good. Just as she was about to turn around and run down to call for help, 2 people held her shoulders. She could not move and could only move her mouth. Touching a woman in broad daylight. "Aren't you afraid of being arrested?" Brother Wang laughed. "Why don't you ask who I Wang Bo am?" The other one also laughed. "Have you heard of the capital's 2 tyrants? Unfortunately, it's just the 2 of us. Even if we kidnap you from the streets, no one will dare to make a sound. So if you don't want to suffer, you'd better come with us obediently." Just as they finished speaking, the 2 of them suddenly fainted. Once Peng Zhijing regained her freedom, she immediately retreated. Only then did she realize that there was an additional person upstairs. She found him rather familiar. "You are? Princess, I am one of the Lord's guards. The Lord is waiting for you in the meeting room," the guard said respectfully. "What? Xiao was here?" She blinked and wanted to run away. "Well, I still have something to do. Can you see if we can do it next time?" "Princess, please don't make things difficult for your subordinate," the guard said methodically. Peng Zhijing could only accept her fate. She took a deep breath and said, "Let's go then." When she saw Xiao, Peng Zhijing revealed a youthful smile and waved at him. "What a coincidence, you're also here." Xiao glanced at her coldly, ignoring her enthusiasm. His gaze made her feel guilty. Unfortunately, this glittering jewels pavilion is this prince's business. "Wow, you're so amazing. You actually know how to do business." She pretended to praise him. "Speak human. You're so cunning, you must be a profiteer." She stopped her exaggerated smile and snorted. Xiao raised his eyebrows. "This prince hasn't even said anything about you yet, but you're already randomly accusing me. What do you want to say about me?" She blinked guiltily. "Didn't I tell you to obediently stay at the relay station? What are you doing here? You even fought with others and caused trouble? Do you think that no one can control you now that you're bold?" Xiao's tone was strict as he criticized her. She had wanted to complain about the 2 hooligans, but when she heard what he said, she felt even more aggrieved. She clenched her fists, lowered her head, and said in a muffled voice, "In your eyes, am I just a troublemaker who only knows how to cause trouble and bring trouble to others?" Thinking that she was unconvinced and was quibbling, Xiao coldly said, "Don't tell me you haven't caused enough trouble?" This sentence was like a heavy hammer that smashed into her heart, causing her thoughts of explaining to disappear. After Xiao finished speaking, he found that she didn't respond. He looked up at her, and saw that her head was lowered as her entire body was filled with resistance. He couldn't help feeling even more disappointed in her. "You're still throwing a tantrum with me?" Peng Zhijing raised her head with red eyes. She said in a sobbing voice, "You bastard, if I ever talk to you again, I won't be called Peng Zhijing." After saying that, she turned around and ran away. Xiao was stunned on the spot. In front of him was still her tear-filled face. What happened to her? Normally, she wouldn't have such a big reaction when he said a few words to her. He rubbed his forehead as he felt a headache coming on. At this moment, the guard standing at the side hesitantly walked forward. "Lord, you seem to have wronged the princess." Xiao looked at him in confusion. "What happened?" "The two people who had a conflict with the princess just now are famous ruffians in the capital. They seem to have thoughts about the princess that they shouldn't have. When this subordinate arrived, they were making a move on the princess. If this subordinate was a step later, I'm afraid that the princess would have been harmed by them," the guard reported truthfully. Xiao was startled. Could it be that he had really wronged her? But as for what exactly happened, perhaps only those two ruffians know. The guard continued. "Bring those two into the secret room and interrogate them yourself," Xiao said with a cold face. "Yes." In the dark secret room, Wang Bo and Li Ren were awakened by someone splashing water on them. When they opened their eyes, they saw all kinds of terrifying torture instruments. The brazier was lit and the two instantly woke up. "Where is this place? Who are you?" Wang Bo looked at the several men in black who walked in. He was so scared that he shrank into the corner. "Just now, what happened between you and that girl?" the man in black asked. After Wang Bo and Li Ren looked at each other, Wang Bo began to cry and complain. "I don't know what happened to that girl. As soon as she came up, she smashed a vase. Sir, look, my head is still bleeding." Saying that, he stretched out his head to show him. The man in black kicked him down. "Tell me honestly, what did you do to her before?" "We didn't do anything," the two of them said with a guilty conscience. "Only one of you can live. Whoever tells the truth first will be spared. Now I'll give you a cup of tea's time. When the time is up, you two will go to hell together." As soon as the man in black finished speaking, the people standing next to him pulled out their swords and stared at them like tigers watching their prey. When one's fear reached the extreme and was forced to the brink of death, the weakness of human nature would be completely exposed. Chapter 1197. I'll talk. Wang Bo said Princess Nan's song was as beautiful as a flower, but chose a short-lived son-in-law. "Li Ren, you've gone too far. Didn't you say Prince Yi had one foot in the coffin and Princess Nan's song could only live as a widow if she married him? Didn't you say Prince Yi was weak and couldn't have sex? You also said your relative worked in the Imperial Hospital, and said Prince Yi wouldn't live long. Li Ren, don't talk nonsense. Don't you know what you said? Didn't you say Prince Yi's mother seduced His Majesty with her beauty? That's why Prince Yi was born." The two argued for a long time. They didn't know what these black-clothed men wanted to do, but they couldn't control their mouths and retold everything they said. After arguing until his mouth was dry, Wang Bo said with grievance, "Sir, that's all we talked about. It had nothing to do with that girl. She threw a vase at me without saying anything. The back of my head is still bleeding." Li Ren echoed, "Yes, this woman is too overbearing. She actually apologized to us and promised that we would never speak ill of Prince Yi and that concubine. Otherwise, she would not be so polite to us. We are men. How could we bear such humiliation? That's why," before Li Ren could finish, his sleeve was pulled. He looked at Wang Bo in confusion. Wang Bo pointed at the black-clothed men with a trembling finger. Li Ren looked up in confusion. The black-clothed men who were standing lazily just now were glaring at them, as if they were enemies. They looked like they were going to tear them apart. The two immediately knelt down and begged for mercy. "Sir, please spare us. Please spare us." Xiao stood outside the secret room with a gloomy face. When he thought of her stubborn and wronged eyes before she left, he felt a sharp pain in his heart. It turned out that she did it for him. He blamed her wrongly. For so many years, no one had ever stood up for him. They would seek justice for him because of someone's slander. He didn't expect it to be a little girl like her. He felt a strange emotion in his heart. It was a little warm and a little scratchy. The guard walked out and asked, "Lord, what should we do with these two?" Xiao put away the emotions in his heart and said with a cold face, "Aren't they local tyrants? Let them have a taste of what they have done before." The guard was stunned. These two people had committed all kinds of crimes. Master wanted to give them a taste of their own medicine. In the past, it wasn't that no one had ever gossiped about him behind his back, but the Lord rarely paid attention to them. So this time, the Lord was venting for the princess, right? The guard felt that this conjecture was very reasonable, so he immediately accepted the order. Luer held the box in her hands and followed her princess. Ever since they left Linlang Pavilion, the princess's complexion had been very bad. She had never seen the princess in such a desolate mood before. "Princess, are you all right?" Luer asked worriedly. She remained silent. Her heart had sunk to the bottom of the valley, and her mood was extremely low. Luer knew that she was in a bad mood, so she stopped bothering her. However, at this moment Luer seemed to have seen someone and immediately pointed to her. "Princess, look. Isn't that person Miss Chu's servant girl?" Pang Zhijing raised her head and looked in the direction she was pointing. It was indeed Qingyan's servant girl, and she seemed to be called Jasper. Jasper had never left her side, so Qingyan should be nearby. She couldn't help but start searching for Qingyan's figure in the crowd. She saw a young man dressed in red walking in front of Jasper and chatting with her from time to time. Men and women of all ages passing by couldn't help but cast their gazes on the young man. What an elegant young man. He was really good-looking. He would attract attention even if he dressed as a man or a woman. Pang Zhijing immediately went up to her and secretly patted her on the shoulder. Qingyan turned around. When she saw that it was her, she couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "What a coincidence. You're out shopping too." "Yes, I'm out shopping with this girl. It's a pity that we met with an accident on the way, and it's quite depressing. However, once I see a handsome man like you, my wounded heart is instantly healed. Sure enough, beautiful people and things are pleasing to the eye." Pang Zhijing was in a good mood as she teased her. Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. "I'm clearly the one dressed as a man. Why am I the little wife instead? That's because this young master has a strong aura. Oh right, do you need anything? If not, let's find a place to sit. How about it?" Pang Zhijing invited her warmly. "How can I not have time for a date with a beauty?" Qingyan opened her fan and waved it suavely. "Also, I have something to tell you. The tea house up ahead is pretty good. I'll treat you to some tea." Pang Zhijing agreed readily. Thus, the two of them walked towards the tea house together. A handsome man and a beautiful woman had always been the center of attention. The two of them were the center of attention all the way until they arrived at a private room in the tea house. "It's so stressful to be with you. Didn't you notice that those girls are all like wolves and tigers? If looks could kill, I probably wouldn't be alive anymore. My heart is so bitter." Pang Zhijing exaggeratedly covered her chest and moaned in pain. Qingyan poured her a cup of tea and said with a helpless smile, "It's not as exaggerated as you say. I feel like I'm the victim here. Those men all want to squeeze me out and take my place. So we're the same. Let's not tease each other." Pang Zhijing laughed mischievously and took a sip of the tea to moisten her throat. Only then did she get to the main topic. "Oh right. What did you say you wanted to tell me?" Qingyan smiled mysteriously and deliberately teased her. "Guess. You're still playing this game with me." Pang Zhijing propped up her chin with both hands and looked at her lecherously. "Are you planning to dump your highness and live with me?" Qingyan was amused. This girl's words were really too interesting. She didn't pretend to be reserved and serious like those noble young misses. Jasper interjected from the side. "Princess, you can say this in front of us. Don't mention it in front of our lord. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences. What could it be that he'll be rough with a weak woman like me?" Pang Zhijing clearly didn't believe her. "Lord won't touch you, but there's no guarantee that he won't touch his highness, the third prince," Jasper said seriously. Pang Zhijing subconsciously swallowed. That Xiao Su loved his wife so much that he might really do that. She should take it easy. Qingyan saw that she was really frightened and couldn't help but be amused. Jasper is just teasing you. Don't be so stupid as to believe her. Peng Zhijing's mouth twitched. She didn't think it was a joke. Xiaosu was too scary. Chu Qingyan smiled and shook her head. Then she said to Jasper, "Bring Miss Lu out for a walk. I have some private matters to discuss with the princess." After they left, Peng Zhijing impatiently said, "Beauty, they've all been sent away. What do you want to say? Don't keep me in suspense." Chapter 1198. Alright, I won't play riddles with you. What I want to tell you is that the things that you asked us to prepare for you have already been completed. She playfully stuck out 5 fingers. 5. Peng Zhijing suddenly had an epiphany. You're saying that 5 out of the 7 keys have been completed? Smart. You guessed it right. Chu Qingyan spared no effort in praising her. Peng Zhijing stood up with a whoa and wanted to shout out in surprise, but she was afraid of being heard by others, so she could only cover her mouth and jump and stomp her feet in circles. That's great, that's great. She could finally escape from this exquisite lock and no longer have to be restricted by others. Then she would be able to run away without any worries. Ah ah ah. She covered her mouth and screamed out silently. Chu Qingyan was amused by her excited and cute look and being influenced by her emotions. The annoyance that she felt at Xiao Ran's place was instantly reduced by half. After Peng Zhijing digested this news, she was still incomparably excited. She turned around and pulled Qingyan up and brought her to jump in the private room, dancing with joy. "Qingyan, it's so good to meet you. You're my lucky star, my lucky messenger." Peng Zhijing stretched out her hands and hugged her tightly. Her eyes were moist and filled with gratitude. Chu Qingyan could tell that she was sobbing. Although she did not quite understand how she felt, she still reached out and hugged her back. "It's all right. All the misfortunes will pass. You have to believe that the more pain you feel in life now, the more enjoyment you will have in the future. Let's start with bitterness before sweetness. This is the easiest way to be satisfied and learn to cherish. Qingyan, you're like a philosopher." Peng Zhijing secretly wiped her tears and tried her best to smile. "Forced by life, that's why I'm self-taught," she teased herself. After the two hugged each other, they separated and sat down. Chu Qingyan passed her a handkerchief and said with a smile, "Wipe it, there's nothing embarrassing about crying tears of joy." Peng Zhijing took it embarrassedly and gently wiped her tears. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but smile when she saw this. This kind of pure girl who showed all her emotions on her face, lived the simplest life, and was also the easiest to be happy. His heart was free of shrewdness, and he lived freely. She couldn't help but feel a little envious. The wood spirit said that the remaining 2 might be a bit difficult, so it asked you to wait a few more days. But I can definitely forge it this month. Peng Zhijing waved her hand. There's no need to rush. I'm already very happy to be able to produce it. It proves that there's hope for unlocking it. She nodded, appreciating her open-minded attitude. The 2 of them drank tea with pastries. The environment was very peaceful, making one feel relaxed and at ease. Peng Zhijing was a little absent-minded. Chu Qingyan saw it in her eyes. Although it was strange, she did not ask. In her opinion, everyone had their own secrets. Even if they were friends, she should not interfere. If she needed help, she would ask for it. At this time, Peng Zhijing seemed to have made an important decision. She looked at Chu Qingyan with a very serious expression. "Qingyan, I have something that I need your help with. I just don't know if you are willing to hear it." Chu Qingyan put down her teacup and kept the relaxed smile on her face. She said solemnly, "Tell me. As long as I can help, I will not refuse." Although she said this, Peng Zhijing still felt uncertain. But for this matter, other than her, she didn't know who else she could ask for help. After a moment of silence, Peng Zhijing mustered up her courage and asked seriously and pleadingly, "Qingyan, before the wedding, I want to leave this place. Can you help me?" Chu Qingyan was stunned by her words. "You mean you want to run away from the wedding? Did I hear wrongly?" Peng Zhijing nodded heavily. "That's right. I want to run away from the wedding. I don't want to be a princess in marriage." Chu Qingyan digested this important news with difficulty. She asked in disbelief, "Why? Didn't you come to Sichuan to establish diplomatic relations between the 2 countries? And this husband was personally chosen by you? She knew that she would be shocked. Pang Zhijing rested her cheeks on her hands and squeezed the flesh on both sides of her face into small balls. She looked very upset. Qingyan, if I said that it was not my intention to be a princess in marriage, would you believe me? I believe you, Chu Qingyan said without hesitation. Under Pang Zhijing's shocked gaze, she slowly said, a political marriage is like an equivalent exchange between two countries. The person in power makes the decision and doesn't care what the person or thing in exchange thinks. This is power politics. Pang Zhijing nodded repeatedly. So I feel that I am a sacrifice. I don't want to be a puppet anymore. To tell you the truth, this exquisite lock on my feet was put on me by Crown Prince Pang Huang. It was to prevent me from running away. Back then, he ordered me to choose the King of England as the Emperor's son-in-law at the palace banquet. It was to take revenge on the King of England for embarrassing him on the battlefield. When Chu Qingyan heard her say this, she found the answers to her previous doubts. She couldn't help but pity Pang Zhijing. It was really hard for her to climb and roll in the whirlpool of power at such a young age. Then what about Xiaoho's side? I can see that you seem to be interested in him. You can bear to leave him? This was what she was most curious about. From the interactions between the two of them, it was as if they were a young couple. Logically speaking, the person she was marrying should be the one she liked and wouldn't run away from the marriage. Pang Zhijing was slightly stunned. Then, she uncomfortably looked away. Her hands touched her fingers as she said in a low voice, he was tricked by me and was forced to marry me. A forcibly picked melon is not sweet. I don't want to shamelessly stick to him. So even if I like him, I'd rather not have love that can't be reciprocated. Furthermore, you can rest assured that my disappearance will not affect the marriage between the two countries. Because even if I fall, there will be thousands of princesses standing up. Therefore, I dare to guarantee that as long as I disappear, there will soon be someone to replace me. In any case, your Xixian only wants the southern Song princess. It doesn't matter who it is. As she said this, she raised her smiling face. The disappointment on her face was swept away. She smiled brightly and said, Qingyan, do you know? People shouldn't only live for love. There are many beautiful things in this world. Friendship, family, freedom, and everything else that is worth being nostalgic for. Zhijing. Chu Qingyan was a little surprised by her thoughts. So Qingyan, you don't have to worry about me. Maybe I'll only marry one person in my lifetime, but I can like many people. I know very well that I have feelings for Xiaoho, but he's not the right person for me. I'll treasure this throbbing, but as long as I leave here, my feelings for him will become a memory in my heart. But slowly, it will no longer occupy a place in my heart. Speaking to this point, she touched her head and said somewhat embarrassedly, people are just so fickle. But isn't that the truth? Could it be that I can still force him to like me? If we're not suitable for each other, then we shouldn't make each other suffer. If the heavens had feelings, the heavens would grow old. If people had feelings, they would die early. So she should just be a heartless little rascal. Chapter 1199. Chu Qingyan felt that Pang Zhijing's words today had completely overturned her understanding of her. She could feel Pang Zhijing's strong heart hidden under her weak appearance. Since she was able to make such a decision, she must be mentally prepared to deal with the hardships that awaited her after escaping from the marriage. After Pang Zhijing finished speaking, she felt that the other party was looking at her with a scrutinizing gaze. Her scalp tightened and she reached out to push her. What's with your expression? Don't you recognize me? Chu Qingyan reached out to pat her hand and said rather emotionally, it feels like I just got to know you today. This makes me feel like I need to get to know you again. Pang Zhijing was amused. What are you talking about? As if I'm a strange creature. Furthermore, what do you mean by this? Could it be that in your eyes, I'm just a silly, happy princess who doesn't care about anything? No, you're more mature than I imagined. Furthermore, I realized that our views are very similar. No wonder I felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity when I first saw you. Thinking back to their first meeting, she felt that this little girl was particularly pleasing to the eye. Now that she looked at her, there was indeed a reason. Peng Zhijing covered her face and said embarrassedly, "Don't say that. I'll be proud." Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. What an interesting girl. After laughing and joking around, Peng Zhijing asked seriously, "Then can you help me with my request?" Looking at those pure eyes, Chu Qingyan really wanted to agree. Such an open-minded girl should soar in the sky like a bird and not be bound to this small piece of land. However, this matter was of great importance. It wasn't a simple marriage. It involved the stability of two countries. She couldn't agree hastily. "Zhijing, don't be impatient. I can't give you an answer right away. I'll go back and discuss it with His Highness. I'll give you an answer in 2 days. Is that okay?" Chu Qingyan negotiated. Peng Zhijing immediately nodded. What was wrong with that? What she was most worried about was that she would refuse. This kind of thing would be troublesome for anyone. Her promise to consider it was already her biggest surprise. "Then please help me put in a good word for me in front of King Ying, please." She put her palms together and begged sincerely. Chu Qingyan didn't care about people's feelings when he did things, so it was useless no matter how much she tried to persuade him. However, in order not to make him worry, Chu Qingyan agreed. "I've been out for some time. It's time for me to go back. If there's anything you need, send someone to the Wang Fu to find me." Chu Qingyan stood up and bid her farewell. "I still need to stay here for a while. You can go back first. Be careful on the road." Although the two of them got along very well and were reluctant to part just like that, they would still have the opportunity to meet again. After getting up and sending Chu Qingyan off, Peng Zhijing felt that she had solved 2 major problems in her heart. Her whole body felt relaxed, and she had the leisure to slowly sip her tea and eat her snacks. Princess Miss Chu is so gentle and kind. She's not like those young ladies from rich families who put on airs and act high and mighty. Lu returned to the private room to serve. Thinking back to Chu Qingyan nodding and smiling at her before she left, she felt her entire heart warm up. Peng Zhijing nodded in agreement. Out of all the women in the capital, she's the most pleasing to the eye. I don't know why, but I always feel that she's very close, as if I've seen her before. This feeling is really wonderful. Thinking back to the first time they met, she had a feeling of regret that they hadn't met sooner. "Princess, you can interact more with this young lady in the future," Lu suggested sincerely. Peng Zhijing raised her eyebrows and moved closer to Lu. She narrowed her eyes and asked, "Is it because you've taken a fancy to her master after meeting her today and want to abandon me?" Lu's face was full of helplessness. "Princess, what are you thinking? This servant thinks that you have no relatives in the capital. It's rare for you to meet such a close friend, so you should interact more so that you won't feel lonely here." Peng Zhijing drew back and pursed her lips. "This reason is barely passable. I won't pursue it." Lu agreed happily. Peng Zhijing couldn't help but smile when she saw her emotions expressed on her face. At this moment, Lu's gaze fell outside the window and she exclaimed in surprise, "Princess, aren't those the guards by Lord's side? Are they looking for us?" Peng Zhijing followed her gaze and saw that they were indeed the people by Xiao's side. She said unhappily, "What they're looking for is none of our business. Even if they're looking for us, we don't have to care. Who does Xiao think he is? When he wants to see me, I'll come at a moment's notice. When he doesn't want to see me, he'll send me away. It's not like I'm an unwanted child." Lu looked at her princess's flustered and exasperated appearance and asked carefully, "Did you and Lord have a fight?" Peng Zhijing harumphed. "I don't care to fight with him. He can do whatever he wants. This lady doesn't care." She was still sullen from being lectured by him for no reason today. She had a belly full of anger that she had nowhere to vent. Lu muttered in her heart. It was obvious that they had a fight, but the princess still refused to admit it. "Let's go." Peng Zhijing suddenly stood up and said. Before Lu could react, she had already walked towards the door. "Princess, where are you going? Aren't you going back to the relay station? I don't want to go back so early. Accompany me to walk around. We'll walk for as long as we can." She didn't want to be found by him. She didn't want to see him now. Let's see what he can do if he can't find her. She hated it the most when he played a game of cat and mouse, always teasing her with confidence. The people who went out to search returned to report. Lord, our people have searched the entire street, but we still haven't found the princess. Do you think something happened to her? The guard guessed. However, just as he finished speaking, he received a cold stare from Lord. He realized that he had said something wrong and hurriedly lowered his head. There's no need to search. She hid on purpose. You won't be able to find her. Xiao knew that she was still blaming him for what happened today. He didn't know how to dissolve the ice between the two of them. He felt rather helpless in his heart. The guard raised his head and saw his master's troubled expression. After thinking for a while, he said, Lord, the princess should still be angry. You just have to lower your stance and take the initiative to coax her. Perhaps her anger will dissipate. Coax her? Xiao felt inexplicably absurd. He, Xiao, had lived for so many years and had never coaxed anyone. Why should he coax her? The guard scratched his head. This subordinate usually sees my brothers treat their wives like this. As long as the man is willing to say something nice, no matter how angry she is, the couple will quickly reconcile. You talk a little too much today, Xiao said coldly. The guard immediately shut up. How could subordinates like them be involved in Lord's matters? He must have been hot-headed to say such things. Thus, he immediately retreated. Xiao stood there alone, his head lowered as he pondered. Should I lower myself and say something nice? Could it really work? Chapter 1200. When Chu Qingyan got back to the mansion, it was almost time for dinner. Before she entered the yard, she could hear the laughter inside. She paused and listened to the sounds inside. Slowly, a smile appeared on her face and she walked in quickly. Mr. Chu asked, Son-in-law, why do cows fly in the sky? Xiao, Mr. Chu said, that's because Daddy is blowing on the ground. Ha 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 ha, Xiao. Mr. Chu said, let me test you again. Who is the mother of the rice? Xiao, Mr. Chu said, it's peanuts. Because of peanuts. Ha 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 ha, Xiao. The moment Chu Qingyan entered the room, she heard her father's deafening laughter. She was amused. Dad, are you playing a brain teaser? Yes, I am playing with a scallion upside down. But he is so stupid because he can't even answer a single question. Don't you think he is stupid? Mr. Chu was laughing so hard that he was convulsing. Obviously, he had not gotten over the fun of guessing the questions. Mrs. Chu explained with a smile. Your father is the only one entertaining himself. His Highness is just accompanying him. Chu Qingyan thought to herself that this iceberg was so smart. She had never won when it came to brain teasers with him. He must have been giving in to Daddy on purpose. She walked over to Xiao and chuckled. How come you have time to keep my parents company? I am almost done with the paperwork, so I am waiting for you to have dinner together. Your parents are here too, so I can chat with them. Xiao smiled at her and ordered the servants to serve dinner. She suddenly felt that this iceberg seemed to be the man of the house. He took care of her parents for her and made all the arrangements for her. He was so different from the man she had met a few years ago. He had changed so much for her without her knowing it. She remembered reading a saying that if a person truly loved you, he would change for the better for you, so that you could give yourself to him without worry. Today, she had a deep understanding of this saying. When she looked at Xiao, she couldn't help but feel touched. Kai, what are you waiting for? Come and eat. Mr. Chu suddenly leaned in front of her and looked at her with his face enlarged. She jumped in fright. She was both angry and amused at the same time. Father, don't get so close to me. You'll scare me to death. Oh, Mr. Chu replied. Then he turned to Xiao and said, Son-in-law, your wife is bullying me. Chu Qingyan's face stiffened. At this time, there was a problem between his wife and father-in-law. How should he solve it? In other people's families, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationships were all forgotten when it came to him. Xiao quietly changed the topic. This sweet and sour pork fillet seems to be getting cold. With that, Chu Machen's father disappeared and reappeared at the dining table with 2 pieces of tenderloin in his mouth. Chu Qingyan secretly gave her big iceberg a thumbs up. You're so smart, so smart. Xiao smiled and shook his head. Throughout the meal, The atmosphere was lively, filled with laughter and cheers. After the meal, Chu Qingyan accompanied her mother for a stroll in the courtyard to help her digest the food. "Mother, you and father have been in the capital for so long, but I haven't asked you if you're used to living here?" Chu Qingyan asked as she supported her mother's arm. Mrs. Chu smiled lovingly. "It's very quiet here, and the servants treat us very well. There's nothing to be used to." At this point, Mrs. Chu's gaze became a little unfocused, as if she was reminiscing. "Actually, compared to the days in Mao Village where we didn't have enough to eat and sleep, now we're living a life of luxury and don't have to worry about food and water. It's already very good. People have to know how to be content with what they have in order to be happy." Her mother's words reminded her of 5 years ago when she had just transmigrated here. Every day, she had to worry about making ends meet, and her mother had to go out early and come back late every day to work for others. It was very tiring. She was very glad that they had walked out of those difficult days. Mother is right. We have to be prepared for danger in times of peace, and be content with what we have. She nodded heavily. Perhaps it was because the children of the poor had matured early, so Kai Kai had always been very sensible. If it weren't for her, she and Yuanjun might still be in that small village suffering. Mrs. Chu reached out and patted her daughter's hand. "It's been hard on you all these years." "Mother, what are you saying? It's not hard at all. I have Big Ice to help me with everything. If I cause trouble, he'll take care of it for me. So as you can see, your daughter is actually quite lawless." She tried her best to say it in a joking tone, so that her mother wouldn't worry about her. Mrs. Chu pursed her lips and laughed. "You little girl, you're still so naughty. However, your father and I have seen how His Highness treats you. He also takes good care of us. It's true that a son-in-law is half a son. Although your father and I only have one daughter, His Highness is like our son. He's very filial, and my wish has been fulfilled. If he dares to treat you badly, I don't want him anymore." She snorted. "What nonsense are you saying? Where else can you find someone as clean and caring as His Highness?" Mrs. Chu couldn't help but feel indignant for Xiao Su. Chu Qingyan found it funny, but she put on an aggrieved expression. "Mother, have you forgotten about your daughter now that you have a son-in-law? How can you side with an outsider?" Mrs. Chu was amused. "You're jealous? You've really been spoiled by His Highness." She smiled shyly. "By the way, did His Highness tell you when the wedding will be held?" She had been worried about this matter. "He did. We originally planned to hold the wedding in the capital, but later we felt that it would be better to hold it in Lianqing. This way, we can save a lot of trouble and don't have to entertain those unimportant people. After the two countries are connected by marriage next month, we can set off for home." She truthfully told her mother about their decision. "That's good. When the time comes, you can be a bride with peace of mind. Mother will definitely marry you off grandly." All these years when she had nothing to do, she had been studying marriage etiquette in order to use it for her daughter's marriage. "Mother, I'm not in a hurry." "Why are you in a hurry?" she said embarrassedly. "Silly child. Mother will only be at ease when I personally hand you over to His Highness. How can I not be in a hurry?" Mrs. Chu reached out to touch her forehead and chuckled. Okay, I got it." At this time, the two of them walked back to the room and heard Mr. Chu's stomping voice. No, I'm not going to play here. I want to play again. Your father is playing chess with His Highness again. He's so bad at chess and keeps going back on his moves. Only His Highness has the patience to endure it. If it were someone else, they would have already lost their temper." Mrs. Chu sighed with emotion. Chu Qingyan looked at the big ice cube sitting under the light, as calm as water, and countless warm currents surged in her heart. At this moment, Xiao Su seemed to have sensed her gaze. He raised his head and looked in her direction. His brows relaxed, and he gave her a faint smile. Then he was quickly pulled away by Chu Machen's father to watch the game. With such a husband, what more could a wife ask for? Chapter 1201. After sending off her parents, Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su stood side by side in the courtyard, admiring the moonlight and the night scenery. Big Ice Cube. Don't you find father annoying that he's always pestering you? I think he likes you too much. That's why he's always circling around you. She tilted her head and hesitated for a while before pouring her heart out. Xiao Su looked at the specks of stars in the distance. He slowly opened his mouth and asked in a matter-of-fact tone, "Why would I find it annoying? Aren't we a family?" These words instantly lit up her eyes. She nodded repeatedly. "Right, a family." A faint smile flashed across Xiao Su's eyes, but it quickly disappeared. "Why did fourth brother look for you today?" he asked calmly. Are you jealous?" She poked his arm and smiled proudly. Xiao Su looked at her and said in confusion, "You're thinking too much. I heard that he left the palace today without telling anyone. The palace is in a mess because he can't be found." Big Ice Cube really doesn't know how to be romantic. But she was more curious. "It's just leaving the palace. Is there a need to make such a fuss? I heard that his health hasn't been very good since the day of the palace banquet. He's been recuperating in the palace all this time. If he suddenly disappeared, it would indeed cause people to panic." At the mention of this fourth brother, Xiao Su had an indescribable feeling. He felt that the older he lived, the less mature and steady he should be at his age. He couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Chu Qingyan's heart thumped. No wonder his complexion was so bad when I saw him today. So he really was sick. It's just that our meeting today wasn't pleasant at all. Xiao Su raised his brows and looked at her, waiting for her to continue. She didn't know how to say it. She felt a little embarrassed. In the end, she sighed lightly and looked into his eyes. Pursing her lips, she said, "Today Xiao Ran confessed to me." Xiao Su's pupils shrank, and then he slowly narrowed his eyes, revealing a dangerous aura. What does he want to do? At first, he apologized on behalf of his mother, saying that falling into the water wasn't an accident, and that it was his mother's plan. Then as he spoke he confessed, "I'm not surprised that he has feelings for me. He had already revealed some signs before, but I was surprised by his thoughts. I really don't know what's going on in that head of his." Speaking up to this point, she was a little angry. She tugged at his sleeve and said indignantly, "Which eye of his saw that the two of us are together on the surface? You have no feelings for me, and we are the sacrificial lambs of a marriage alliance? What makes him think that I have feelings for him? He even said that as long as I nodded, he would have a way to make our marriage invalid. Was he kidding me? Am I dreaming in broad daylight?" She took a breath and continued, "I really don't know what he learned in the past 5 years. His head is full of fantasies. He used to be quite cute. How did he become so crooked?" Hearing the little fellow's complaints, Xiao Su's gaze darkened. The little fellow was right. What was CD thinking? After talking for a long time, Big Ice Cube did not speak. She looked at him, her expression tense, as if she was a little angry. She pulled at his sleeve uneasily. "Big Ice Cube, what's wrong? Are you very angry?" Oh no, she couldn't help but tell Big Ice Cube about this. Wasn't she too reckless? However, in her heart, she was a little afraid of Xiao Ran's confident look. She would rather believe him than not believe him. If he really did try to destroy her marriage with Big Ice Cube, then it would be terrible. Moreover, she didn't plan to hide it from Big Ice Cube. There shouldn't be any secrets between the two of them. Moreover, this matter was no longer about pure love. It involved underhanded means. Therefore, instead of waiting until something happened, it was better to tell Big Ice Cube clearly from the beginning to prevent any accidents in the future. "I am very disappointed in CD," Xiao Su slowly said. Even though he knew that the little fellow was his fiancé, he still brazenly expressed his intentions and wanted to snatch his little fellow away. From this, it could be seen that he did not take this imperial brother of his to heart at all. Moreover, he knew that he could not do it, but he still did it. This was the first time she heard such a tone from him. It carried a sigh, a little annoyance and self-mockery. Big Ice Cube. He's too used to me giving in to him, so he takes it for granted that everything around me, including people, as long as he likes it, I'll give it to him without a care. He takes my care of him for granted and blackmails me. Xiao Su chuckled, his voice a little cold. He's like an ingrate. This reminds me of a small story. There was a person who gave 10 won to a beggar outside his door every day. Then it became 5 won a day, and then it became 2 won. One day, the beggar asked him, Why are you giving me less and less money? He said, before I was single, so I gave you 10 won. Then I had a wife, so I could only give you 5 won. Then I had a son, so I could only give you 2 won. When the beggar heard this, he was furious and said, how can you use my money to support your wife and child? She slowly told the story, shaking her head and sighing. A person's greed knows no bounds. When you continue to be good to a person, after a long time, they will take it as your responsibility. A man who is never content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Then she raised her head and said to him, isn't this very similar to the present Xiao Ran? Xiao did not answer. He just put his hand on her head and gently rubbed it. Feeling the deep disappointment on Big Ice Cube, she was suddenly angry at Xiao Ran. Big Ice Cube gave him the little familial love and care. He did not care less about him because of the fight between the left and right prime ministers in court, or the fight between the Empress and Consort Yu, but he actually coveted his future sister-in-law. She knew that feelings were not something she could control, but it was awkward and difficult to say it out loud. Big Ice Cube, I have already made it clear to him. Before he completely lets go, I will not see him again. But I am worried that there will be some change in the situation. Then it will affect both of us. This was her true worry. The drowning incident involved Consort Yu. She was afraid that it would become more and more involved in the future. When that time came, it would be difficult for them to leave the capital. Xiao rubbed her head and said in a cold and hard voice, I'll finish the things at hand first. In 2 days, I'll tell Imperial Father that I want to return to my fief. If he agrees, we'll go back to Lian City. We don't have to attend the wedding between the 2 countries and leave early. Hearing this, she was delighted and nodded heavily. Okay, I will listen to you. A month ago, I have already informed Lianqing to prepare for the wedding. As soon as we return to the fief, we can immediately perform the ceremony. Xiaosu's gaze became gentle. She smiled charmingly. I will listen to you. Chapter 1202. Hearing her obedient answer, Xiao could not help but pull her into his embrace. Ever since I created the Fierce Wind Cavalry, I thought that as long as I wanted to do something in this world, there was nothing I couldn't do. But ever since I met you, I realized that there are still many things I need to do. Big Ice Cube's sudden lament made her a little stunned. She shrank into his arms and stuck close to him. Then, she slowly revealed a mischievous smile. Of course, because you have to learn how to be a husband, and then become a father. People are not born with many things, they need to learn slowly in life. The responsibilities on your shoulders and the roles you play will also increase. Big Ice Block, I'll need your guidance in the future. Xiao smiled and reached out to touch her nose. Naughty. She chuckled and then remembered something. She couldn't help but stop the thought of teasing Big Ice Block. Her expression turned serious as she said, Oh right, Big Ice Block, I have something to discuss with you. Let's hear it. He raised his eyebrows. This matter is related to Pang Zhijing. Do you remember that I asked the Wood Spirit to help her create the key to the 7 apertures exquisite lock on her feet? Today, I met her on the way back, and she confessed to me that she was forced to come to Sichuan to become a princess by marriage because of Pang Huang. Pang Huang wanted to use her to take revenge on you, but she resisted and chose Xiao Ho. After a simple explanation, she went straight to the point. She wants to ask for our help to help her escape the capital before the wedding and never come back. Isn't she and third brother in love? Xiao raised his eyebrows and asked in a confused tone. Chu Qingyan shook her head. I'm not sure about Xiao Ho's feelings for her, but I know that she likes Xiao Ho in her heart. It's just that this little girl is very open-minded and feels that Xiao Ho is not suitable for her. Moreover, she yearns for freedom more, so she wants to escape the marriage. What do you think of this matter? Can you help? She asked if he could, not if he should. It was obvious that she was more inclined to help, but she had to consider the actual situation and whether or not she could help. Yes. Xiao answered without hesitation. Chu Qingyan was stunned. She thought that she would have to spend a lot of time and energy to convince the ice cube. She didn't expect it to go so smoothly. Big Ice Cube, you really surprised me. Previously, he had asked him to keep a distance from Pang Zhijing. Why was he so straightforward this time? Xiao Su could not help but pinch her nose when he saw her stunned expression. He chuckled and said, "I don't like to owe people favors. Her performance at the palace banquet saved us a lot of trouble. Just this point alone is enough to tell that she is worth helping." "Besides," she quickly asked, "and what?" "Third brother has caused so much trouble for us in the past few years. It's time to return the favor. After all, as the old saying goes, it's impolite not to reciprocate." Speaking of this, Xiao Su's eyes flashed. From his observation, it was not that his third brother did not seem to have no feelings for Pang Zhijing. It was just that he did not notice it. If this matter could be settled in this period of time, his third brother would be distracted by Pang Zhijing's matter, and would not have much energy to monitor the situation on his side. Then it would be much easier for him to take the little fellow out of the capital. This was actually killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Under the analysis of the ice cube, she suddenly felt that helping Pang Zhijing escape from the marriage was a matter of great benefit and no harm. Returning the favor to Xiao Ho, and reducing the resistance. She had to admire the ice cube's vision of the overall situation. As expected of a general, he was able to devise strategies. But there is one more thing. Although the princess said that her escape from the marriage would not affect the 2 countries, I am still a little worried. She had to help, but she had to be careful and not make any mistakes. Otherwise, she would have to clean up the mess in a hurry. Xiao Su smiled indifferently. "This is not something we should worry about." Sensing his nonchalant attitude, Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. Was this still the big block of ice who prioritized his country over everything? Looking at the little fellow's shocked eyes, Xiao Su smiled. People will change. If you give too much or too long, you will be tired. I have spent so many years playing the role of a royal prince. In the future, I will concentrate on being your husband, your parents' son-in-law, and the father of your future child. I will be very busy in the future, and will not have so much time and energy to spend on things that have nothing to do with me. Moreover, if I have to think about everything, why do I need the civil and military officials? Protecting the country and the world is the responsibility of the monarch. And I will only be a small idle lord from now on. I don't have that much ability." Chu Qingyan was pleasantly surprised. The big ice cube was finally willing to let go of the heavy burden on his shoulders. She tiptoed and kissed him hard on the cheek. She said excitedly, "I thought that by the time you said this, we would have to wait until we were both old and gray. It's great that you would be able to think things through. It's not that I don't have selfless patriotism, but I don't want you to waste all your energy on some unworthy people. They don't respect you at all, and only treat you as a tool to protect the country. It's too unfair to you." The moisture on his face still had the remnants of her fragrance. With her soft body in his arms and her reassuring words in his ears, he felt at this moment that if he only lived for her for the rest of his life, perhaps he would never be tired of it. In the future, wherever she was, it would be his home, country, and world. He would use his entire life to guard it for her. "You're right, but let's talk about something else now. In view of my sudden realization, wasn't the reward just now a little too light?" He chuckled. His voice was especially seductive in the dark night. Chu Qingyan was stunned. Then, she realized what he was referring to and her face immediately reddened. Unknowingly, the ice cube had already turned black. But such a large ice cube was so tempting. He lowered his eyes. His eyes were mesmerizing and his voice was so seductive that she couldn't help but fall into it. She raised her head and slowly approached him. On the ground, 2 figures blended together. It was impossible to tell who was who. It was a beautiful day. Their clothes fluttered in the wind and their passion overflowed. At this moment, Pang Zhijing brought Lu back to the relay station, exhausted. Shopping really wasn't a job that humans could do. Her legs almost didn't belong to her. At this moment, she was filled with regret. In order to compete with Xiao Ho, she had gone through all this trouble. She was simply making life difficult for herself. Her head drooped. She felt like she could sleep anywhere. As they walked, Luer suddenly tugged at her sleeve and said in surprise, "Princess, look. There seems to be someone standing in our courtyard." Pang Zhijing wasn't in the mood. "Our relay station is filled with people. It'd be strange if there's no one. She raised her head as she spoke. Using the weak moonlight, she looked at the figure that seemed a little familiar. That person seemed to have noticed their voices and slowly turned around. She widened her eyes. Xiao. Chapter 1203. Seeing him here, Pang Zhijing's first thought was, he wouldn't come to denounce her again, right? She was only hiding to prevent his people from finding her. Was there a need to be so serious and come to scold her in the middle of the night? Following that, she thought he had gone overboard with his words today. She was still angry, yet he still dared to come find her? She really didn't want to see him. As Luer cried out, Pang Zhijing expressionlessly walked over. She looked straight ahead and prepared to walk past him to return to her room. Xiao looked at the person walking in front of him, not willing to look at him at all. She was completely ignoring him. He felt a bit helpless but also found it funny. When she approached him, her heart couldn't help but beat faster. She looked down on herself and quickened her steps. However, a hand suddenly reached out and grabbed her wrist, stopping her in her tracks. She had no choice but to stop and turn her eyes away from him. Xiao saw her stubbornly twisting her little face and raised his eyebrows. Still angry, Pang Zhijing didn't respond. You really won't talk to me? He walked in front of her and looked into her eyes as he asked this. Pang Zhijing turned her head away. Xiao looked around and felt that this wasn't a good place to talk, so he said to her, let's go somewhere else. Pang Zhijing felt weak all over and exhausted. She didn't want to go anywhere with him, so she tried to pry his fingers away, trying to break free. But don't look at his gentle and weak appearance. She used all her strength, but she couldn't move him at all. Luer saw that the two were entangled and her princess was at a disadvantage. She wanted to protect her master, so she went up to persuade him. Lord, let's talk things out. Xiao looked at her and said gently, this king will take the princess away. I'll return her later. After saying this, he didn't wait for Pang Zhijing's response. He grabbed her waist and flew out of the courtyard. Luer was shocked. She wanted to chase after him, but he was already gone. Ever since she fell down several times, she began to have a shadow of heights. She was so scared that she tightly hugged something she could lean on. At this moment, she couldn't care less about her grudge with Xiao. Looking at the person in his arms with her eyes tightly closed and her limbs wrapped around him like an octopus, the stubborn and cold appearance from before was nowhere to be seen. He had the thought of teasing her. He exerted strength in his legs and doubled his speed. Sure enough, she hugged him even tighter. He was in a good mood, but it was a pity that she was really firm in what she said before. She wouldn't talk to him, and she even endured the screams. It seemed that she was serious with him this time. However, he guessed that she must be cursing him in her heart right now. Xiao's guess was right. She had been cursing in her heart for a long time. Ah, Xiao, you bastard, bad silver, I'm going to kill you. Why aren't you landing yet? You scared me to death. At this moment, she wished she could transform into a shrew and give him a good scolding from head to toe. She was counting down the seconds like years. She didn't know how long she had been floating in the sky, but her feet finally landed on the ground. She almost collapsed to the ground. Fortunately, I caught him, otherwise he would have been embarrassed. After she steadied herself, she pushed him away in a bad mood. She rubbed the wrist that he had grabbed earlier and stood silently by the side. Seeing her burning the bridge after crossing the river, and doing it so naturally, Xiao felt both angry and amused. He explained, this is the mountain behind your relay station. Usually no one will come here. She rolled her eyes. Who would come here? She turned around and wanted to leave. However, she felt her wrist being grabbed again. Again? Only this time, it wasn't as simple as grabbing her wrist. She felt a force pushing her back, and very quickly, her back was pressed against something hard. It was prickly and felt like tree bark. At this moment, a warm breath suddenly closed in. She abruptly regained her senses and raised her head, just in time to meet that pair of beautiful smiling eyes. You're really not going to talk to me? He repeated the question from before, but in his words there was a hint of threat. She turned her head and used her actions to express her refusal. All right, then I'll see how long you can hold on for. His ambiguous words made her heart go thump. No way, was he going to abuse her? Suddenly, the person in front of her leaned closer, and his shadow instantly enveloped her entire body. His masculine scent was everywhere. She opened her eyes wide to see that pair of sparkling eyes getting closer and closer. Her heart was completely flustered. What was he going to do? Could it be that he was going to force himself on her? If it was any other time, she would definitely pounce on him without any hesitation. But now that the two of them were in a cold war, kissing just because of a disagreement, was that appropriate? But that faintly discernible medicinal scent made her a little dazed. However, in her daze, she seemed to have seen a smirk of success flash past his eyes. It was as if cold water was poured over her as she instantly sobered up. She stretched out her hand and pushed him away. Then she pressed herself against the tree trunk, one hand pressing against her wildly beating heart while the other hand stretched out to prevent him from coming closer. She glared at him with lingering fear. You can't be like this. You don't play by the rules. Hearing her vibrant voice, Xiao ignored her flustered and exasperated state. He crossed his arms and looked at her in a good mood. This prince has never stuck to the rules. It's fine as long as I achieve my goal. See, you can't hold it in anymore, can you? She snorted. Then dare I ask your highness, Princey, why did you try so hard to plot against me? If there's nothing important, I'll go back. This is the wilderness, so please do as you please. Forgive me for not being able to entertain you. There's nothing important. He muttered. Are you kidding me? All right, then forgive me for not seeing you off. See you later. She turned around to leave after she finished speaking. But who could tell her? How did the person who was just there a moment ago block her way in the blink of an eye? Xiao, are you done yet? She was going crazy. Being reprimanded by him today was already bad enough, and now he was bullying her. How annoying. Looking at her angry face, although it was fun, he still had some conscience. He knew that even a rabbit would bite when it was cornered. He recalled what the guard said before. His wife needed to be coaxed more to reconcile. Let's give it a try. He was silent for a moment before he spoke a little awkwardly. The clothes you're wearing today are very nice. What? Pang Zhijing was a little dumbfounded. Did she hear it wrong? Was he crazy? Was he talking nonsense because his brain was connected to the sweet potato vine? He was so baffling. What do you want to do? She felt so tired and didn't want to deal with him anymore. She couldn't help but admit defeat and give up struggling. Xiao's eyes twitched. As expected, she was special and not suitable for the coaxing methods of ordinary people. Sensing the tiredness and impatience in her eyes, he stopped smiling and reached out to tuck her hair behind her ear. His voice was serious and soft. Did those two bully you today? Chapter 1204. His ice-cold fingertips slid over her warm skin. The touch of ice and fire brought about a strange feeling. She felt a rare gentleness from him. The hair that fell over her shoulder was also pushed back. The air was filled with an ambiguous aura. Even the air was hot, making it hard for her to breathe. She was first stunned by his actions. Then she forced herself to calm down, but it was no use. What do you mean by those two people? Her thoughts could no longer keep up as she asked. I met them in the Linlang Pavilion. He patiently explained. His eyes never left her gradually turning red cheeks. The charming atmosphere suddenly disappeared. The confusion in her eyes disappeared as she recalled how he had lost his temper with her, because of those two people. She reached out her hand to press against his chest and glared at him. Didn't you say that I hit people for no reason? You've already set a crime for me, so why are you asking me now? Could it be that you want to scold me again? Let me tell you, Xiao, I am the dignified Southern Blue Princess. My status is not any lower than yours, so why should I be lower than you? Being scolded like a primary school student, this princess is not happy and refuses to talk to you. The person in front of him seemed like she had her tail stepped on as she immediately jumped up. Her face was bright red and he didn't know if it was because she was shy or angry. The red in her white skin was very attractive, making him think of peaches in spring. Only at this time, her body was covered in thorns and she was on guard against him. Moreover, her anger was very strong, making it difficult for him to handle. Then I'll listen to your explanation now. Do you have anything to say? He looked into her eyes and said, wasn't it too late to ask her now? He no longer had his stern appearance and asked in a gentle voice. For someone like Peng Zhijing, who was amenable to coaxing but not coercion, it was very effective. Like a gust of warm wind, it gently knocked on the door of her heart, causing her grievances to slowly pour out. Her eyes gradually turned red, and her nose began to sting. Why should I explain just because you say so? What do you think I am? A doll that you can order at your beck and call? She held back her tears and angrily glared at him. But she didn't know how heart-wrenching it was for her to hold back her tears, so that they wouldn't flow down her face. Xiao hadn't paid much attention to her thoughts before. Now seeing her so aggrieved and complaining, it was as if someone had dug a hole in his heart, and it was empty. He couldn't help but reach out to hug her and comfort her. When he leaned over, Peng Zhijing seemed to have broken down. She clenched her fists and punched him. You bastard! Bastard! You're always prejudiced against others. You're bossy and dictatorial. I was bullied and you still scolded me. I was clearly standing up for you, but you didn't ask for the reason and thought that I was being unreasonable. I've always advocated that if you can use your mouth, don't use your hands. If I wasn't so angry, would I have hit you with a vase? I was afraid that I would have to pay with my life if I killed someone, so I was especially careful with my strength. Their mouths are dirty. Is it wrong for me to teach them a lesson? You still blame me? Don't you know what kind of person I am? Do I look like the kind of person who would cause trouble? Xiao, you bastard. You're a bad person. He hugged her into his arms and let her beat him to vent her anger. She didn't have much strength. Her fists were just like scratching an itch. But her cries were like an invisible rope that kept entangling his heart. Along with it, he felt a little pain in his heart. He tightened his hands and said in a good temper, I've wronged you. I'm wrong. If you want to hit or scold me, I'll admit it. Perhaps even Xiao didn't know that this was the first time in his life that he had sincerely bowed down to someone and admitted his mistake. In the past he had put on a show, but this was the only time he admitted it from the bottom of his heart. His gentle apology was like a catalyst that forced all her tears out. You're a dog-biting Lu Dongbin. You don't know how to appreciate a good person's kindness. Yes, I don't know how to appreciate a good person's kindness. You're dictatorial and only know how to teach people a lesson. You're so bad. Yes, I'm so bad. One was full of complaints, as if she wanted to vent all her grievances back to him. The other was comforting her wholeheartedly, as if he wanted to pour all his gentleness into her. However, after listening to his words, she cried even louder. Not knowing how long had passed, she finally lost all her strength and collapsed in his arms. Fortunately, he locked her in his arms and supported her. Otherwise, she would have been in close contact with the ground. Tired of crying and scolding, she snorted. If apologies are useful, why do I need constables? Xiao raised an eyebrow. You've been scolding me for so long and you're still angry? Peng Zhijing whined. If I forgive you so easily, it'll be too easy for you. Compared to the damage you've done to my heart and spirit, what I said earlier is not enough to offset half of it. That's not enough? Xiao felt a headache coming on. Then what do you want? I haven't thought about it yet, but if you can sincerely and respectfully say to me that I'm wrong, I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself. She was the kind of person who would climb up the ladder if she was given a pole. However, she often couldn't tell the situation clearly, so she had already tormented herself. After she finished speaking, she was about to watch him admit defeat when she suddenly felt her feet hanging in the air. Then the world started to spin. When she stabilized, she opened her eyes and realized that she and Xiao were sitting on a tree trunk. If it was a tree trunk that was as tall as a person, it would be fine. However, this tree was bare and did not have any leaves. Just by looking down at the ground, she felt dizzy. She hugged his waist tightly. Her earlier awe-inspiring look instantly disappeared. Hurry and bring me down. I'm scared. Xiao leaned against the tree trunk calmly. He glanced at her hands that were hugging him and said slowly, What did you want me to apologize to you just now? No, you don't have to apologize. She wanted to go down now. Then why are you still angry? He reached out and played with her hair as he asked casually. I'm not angry, I'm not angry. She shook her head resolutely. Am I very bad and a jerk? He continued to ask. I'm bad, I'm a jerk. She sobbed. So obedient. He rubbed her head. Then can we go down now? She negotiated and carefully asked in an attempt to curry favor. Xiao said leisurely. There's no rush. The higher you stand, the farther you can see. Don't you think that the scenery outside the relay station is the best from this height? See your head. I don't care. I want to go down. Hurry. She couldn't take it anymore and pounded him in protest. His gaze fell on her flushed cheeks. Xiao said calmly. If you move again, this prince can't guarantee that this branch will be able to withstand it. Just as he said that, the branch shook accordingly. She was so frightened that she immediately hugged him again. Then she lifted her head from his embrace and asked pitifully. Then when are we going down? If you behave well. Peng Zhijing's face darkened. Chapter 1205. Was he teasing her? May I ask what you mean by good performance? She asked through gritted teeth. This question stumped Xiao. He lowered his head and looked at the person lying in his arms. With a fake smile, he mercilessly said, Your smile is too fake. She wrinkled her nose and wanted to smash the table. You live by the sea. What? Xiao did not understand. You're such a busybody. She muttered unhappily. Xiao chuckled, which made her hair stand on end. He rubbed her hair hard. If you don't know how to speak, then don't speak. No one will blame you. She slapped his hand away from her hair and glared at him angrily. Seeing her angry look, it was much more pleasing to the eye than her cold look before. He could not help but pinch her face. Be good, don't make a fuss. Why did these words sound so much like a doting boyfriend? Her face heated up slightly and she tilted her head, not wanting him to see her like this. Then she turned around and saw that his clothes were wet from her tears, but he did not seem to care. But in Peng Zhijing's eyes, she felt a little embarrassed. Because of this, and because she knew that the more she went against him, the more he would go against her, so she stopped. Anyway, his martial arts were so high, he was not afraid of falling. Perhaps even she herself did not realize that in her interactions with Xiao, she had slowly become dependent on him. The noisy people finally quieted down. Xiao subconsciously lowered his head to look at her. From this angle, he could only see her exquisite side profile. He could not help but think of a phrase to describe her. Quiet as a virgin, moving as a fleeing rabbit. What a wonderful woman. She was different from anyone he had interacted with before. He slightly retracted his gaze and suddenly asked, Why should I care when their mouths are on their bodies? This question circled around his heart, but he could not find the reason. He was very puzzled. Hearing his puzzled question, Peng Zhijing was a little dazed. Because even she did not know the reason for his question. She only remembered that at that time, their words were unpleasant and full of malicious words. She was so angry that she didn't know where she got the courage to stand out and fight the two of them alone. Just think of it as me being hot-headed. There was an answer in her heart, but she didn't want to tell him. Perhaps it was because he didn't want to hear others speak ill of him and implicate his beloved mother, so he supported her with all his might. Xiao was obviously very dissatisfied with this answer, but he didn't know how to make her speak. Just as he was silent, he heard the person in his arms continue. Actually, after thinking about it, I felt that I was really brave. If there was a next time, I might not have the courage to throw that vase. At most, I would have scolded them. As he listened to her self-analysis and how she didn't mind showing off her cowardice to him, he couldn't help but look at her as an indescribable emotion welled up in his heart. He was slightly dazed, and when he came back to his senses, he felt a bit uncomfortable. Then he didn't forget to lecture her. Fighting was the last resort. You're still a girl, and you have no relatives or friends in the capital. If you hadn't stopped them in time, you would have been the one to suffer. She curled her lips. But I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't just watch them leave. So it was because of him that she was angry. Xiao hooked his lips into a devilish smile. You can remember their faces and tell me. I have my ways to punish them. Really? If I'm bullied in the future, I can ask you for help? Her eyes instantly lit up. She clung to his arms and looked at him expectantly. He couldn't help but avert his eyes from her bright eyes. Of course. Great. This way, I'll have a protective talisman. You're so sinister and cunning. Only you can bully others. Who can bully you? Looks like I can walk sideways in the capital in the future. Peng Zhijing's smile almost reached her ears. Seeing the person who was so happy that she couldn't tell north from south, Xiao couldn't bear to hurt her, so he shut his mouth in the end. With the knot in her heart removed, Peng Zhijing didn't argue with him about what happened today and started to become a chatterbox. Do you really think that my clothes look good? She thought of his praise and asked bashfully. Oh, that was a white lie, he replied casually. She was stunned for a moment, then she roared. Xiao, I'm never talking to you again. Xiao added. Indeed, there's nothing else to praise, so I reluctantly made do with the clothes. Ah, see you in debt. No, I won't even see you in debt. All right, if you can go down by yourself, then I'll reluctantly meet you. She was stunned. She was too cowardly, but there was no other way. This place was too high, and her life was in his hands. She could only secretly think that when they reached flat ground, she would definitely not have anything to do with him anymore. She kept a straight face and didn't want to talk anymore. She felt that if she continued talking to him, she would only be asking for humiliation. Perhaps it was because she didn't talk and was too quiet that Xiao was not used to it. In the future, how should I address you? He took the initiative to ask. It's not the first time we've met. Why are you being so polite? She rolled her eyes at him in annoyance. You said before that if you talk to me in the future, you won't call me Peng Zhijing. He repeated the words she said in Linlang Pavilion. She muttered softly, my name wasn't that in the first place. What are you mumbling to yourself about? Nothing. If there was a chance in the future, she would tell him. Yes, if there was a chance. Today, Peng Zhijing felt like she was on a roller coaster. Her mood had been fluctuating. After crying bitterly, her body had reached a certain point of exhaustion. Under the cool breeze and the bright moon, in the comfortable embrace, Peng Zhijing felt sleepy. Slowly, she closed her eyes. After a long time, seeing that she didn't speak, Xiao lowered his head and her peaceful sleeping face came into view. She was like a little rabbit that stood aloof from worldly affairs. Obedient and well-behaved as she nestled on his body. Without a trace of defense, she fell asleep just like that. Xiao reached out his hand and landed on her soft face, gently caressing it with pity. Today's her had completely overturned his understanding of her. When someone slandered him, she stood up for him without hesitation. When he misunderstood, she didn't explain herself and wasn't willing to take out what she did for him to gain his favor. She didn't tell him that she did it to help him vent his anger. Compared to those people who did something and announced it to the world, she was really so pure and beautiful that it made people pity her. He sighed softly. Forget it, if you want to walk sideways, then walk sideways. I will protect you. The treetops swayed slightly and in the blink of an eye, he had already landed on the ground with her in his arms. He lowered his eyes to look at her. When he saw that she wasn't woken up, he then used his qinggong and leaped towards her courtyard. In this world, there was no hatred for no reason, and there was no love for no reason. But most people didn't know where their feelings came from, but they were deeply in love. Chapter 1206. Ever since Xiao Ran was rejected by Chu Qingyan that day, he had been in a daze and had been drinking in the palace all day. He still couldn't understand what was wrong with him. Why couldn't Qingyan look at him more than once? He picked up the wine jug and poured it into his mouth, allowing the wine to flow from the corners of his mouth. In an instant, the wine jug was half empty. Qingyan, why don't you want to see me? I like you so much. He burped, then stood up shakily with the help of the table. After taking a few steps, he fell back down. He didn't feel any pain and continued to drink from the wine jug. As he drank, he shook his head and began to recite a poem. Guan Guan Jujiu, in the continent of the river, a fair and virtuous woman, a gentleman's dream, a mixed and virtuous woman, a mixed and virtuous woman. A gentleman seeks her all night long, a fair and virtuous woman. A gentleman tosses and turns. Lord Xiangyu, what should we do? His Highness has already been drinking for several days. If this continues, I'm afraid his body won't be able to take it. The mama who had raised Xiao Ran single-handedly wiped away her tears when she saw him in such a daze. Xiangyu frowned deeply. Mama, go to the Moon Palace and report everything to Her Highness. See how Her Highness will deal with this. The mama gave an AI and immediately complied. After all, they were all servants. Only Her Highness Consort you could control His Highness. Moon Palace. Her Highness, fourth prince is drunk. The people in the palace can't stop him. Consort you had already been troubled by her son's refusal to see her these past 2 days, because he blamed her. Now that she saw the mama frantically running over to report, she was shocked. She didn't care about anything else and immediately went over with her people. The moment she entered the inner hall, the smell of alcohol hit her in the face. Consort you frowned and immediately had the people open all the windows. When Consort you saw that there was no one on the bed, table, or chair, she immediately turned to question the palace servants in the hall. Where is His Highness? The mama immediately pointed in the direction. His Highness is there. Looking in the direction the nanny was pointing, she saw a figure curled up under the windowsill, holding a bottle of wine in his arms, taking a few sips from time to time. Imperial concubine Moon's eyes widened. She never imagined that in just a few short days, her son would become so thin and dispirited that he looked like a drunkard on the side of the road. She was both angry and angry. What are you all standing around for? Hurry up and help His Highness onto the bed. The eunuchs behind him immediately stepped forward and prepared to help him up. Afterwards, Xiao Ran, whose mood of drinking had been disrupted, waved them away and shakily pushed himself up from the ground. He turned around and saw his mother. He couldn't help but blink. After doing his best to see clearly, he smiled. You've come. Quickly, someone come and take a seat. How can I let my mother stand? Before he could finish, he fell down again. Consort you held her forehead. He was actually drunk to the point of being delirious. Why aren't you helping His Highness up yet? Very quickly, Xiao Ran was brought to the bed. During this time, Consort you wanted someone to change his clothes, but no one could stop him when he was drunk. They could only put a blanket over him first. Consort you sat down and saw that his face was flushed, and his breathing was somewhat irregular. Her heart jumped, and she immediately went to wipe his forehead. As expected, it was very hot. This unfilial son, he's already this sick and he still dares to drink. Consort you was so angry that her anger immediately flared up. Mama Jiang, drag out all the palace servants and give them 20 beatings. How are they taking care of His Highness? They actually didn't call for an imperial physician. The palace servants all knelt down and begged for mercy. His Highness didn't want to see an imperial physician, so they couldn't do anything. Consort you didn't pay any attention to them. Very quickly, someone came forward to drag them away. Soon the outside of the hall was filled with cries and cries. Jade Rabbit, quickly go to the imperial physician's courtyard and call for an imperial physician. Consort you ordered. Yes, Your Highness. Jade Rabbit didn't dare delay, and quickly ran off. Why can't it be me? Qingyan, I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. I really like you. Eldest brother, can you give Qingyan to me? At this time, most of the people in the hall had left. Consort you reached out to stroke her son's head. Hearing him speak nonsense, she felt very uncomfortable. She was just a woman, but she caused him to be in this state. Consort you suddenly had the thought of making her disappear. What a foolish child. There are millions of women in the world. Why must you hang yourself to a tree? Very quickly, an imperial physician came back with a medicine box. Imperial physician Li, quickly take a look at Ranner. How is his illness? Consort you anxiously said. Imperial physician Li was the most senior imperial physician in the imperial physician's courtyard. He was also the one with the best medical skills. Even Consort you had to be polite to him. Imperial physician Li put down the medicine box and said to Consort you, Your Highness, please wait patiently. I'll make a judgment after taking a look. Consort you hurriedly complied. Imperial physician Li sat down and placed Xiao Ran's hand on the pillow. Then, he pinched his beard and closed his eyes to examine his pulse. After a while, Imperial Physician Li opened his eyes with a frown. He then checked Xiao Ran's eyes and muttered to himself. Then he turned to Consort Yu and said in a grave voice, "Reporting to Your Highness, His Highness the Fourth Prince caught a cold after falling into the water. He hasn't been treated in time. In addition, he has a disordered schedule, skipped meals, and drank too much. Now his condition has worsened and his fever won't subside. If his fever continues, I'm afraid his brain will be damaged." What? Ranner could become an idiot? Consort Yu almost fainted. Nurse Jiang and Jade Rabbit hurriedly helped her to the side to rest. Imperial Physician Li also immediately checked her pulse. Then he sighed in relief. "Your Highness is just overly frightened. You just need to rest for a bit." Consort Yu said with a pale face. "Imperial Physician Li, you don't need to worry about this consort. Saving Ranner is more important. Alright, this old one will prescribe some medicine for the fourth prince. Then no matter what, you have to feed him some liquid food. After that, we'll see if his fever can subside today. If it can't, then this old one will be unable to save the situation." Imperial Physician Li had seen many big scenes and was relatively calm. After he finished speaking, he turned to write down the prescription. Then he had the palace servants rush to the Imperial Hospital to prepare the medicine. Consort Yu struggled to sit up and sat down next to Xiao Ran. She held her son's hands and placed them next to her face with a mournful expression. It wasn't easy for her to climb to this position and fight with those imperial concubines until now. Her greatest achievement was giving birth to this son. In the entire imperial family, which prince was more favored than him? His Majesty's entire heart was on him. If there were no accidents, the country would be handed over to him sooner or later. If something happened to him, wouldn't all her years of forbearance be in vain? Would it all become a wedding dress for someone else? Consort Yu fiercely threatened. "Ranner, if something happened to you, Mother wouldn't want to live either. But don't worry, Mother will kill Chu Qingyan to accompany you in death." No one noticed that Xiao Ran's eyelids twitched slightly. Chapter 1207. Inside the Imperial Study, Sichuan Emperor looked at his eldest son, who was standing ramrod straight in front of his desk. He was shocked by his son's words, but after many years of governing the imperial court, he no longer showed his joy on his face. He stroked his beard and asked with uncertainty, "Are you sure you want to hand over the command medallion of the three armies? These are the soldiers you brought up yourself." Xiao Su nodded without thinking. "I have thought it through very clearly." Sichuan Emperor was secretly delighted. 5 years ago, he used some tricks to get his son to hand over the military power of the three armies. He finally had peace for a few years, but he didn't expect the southern Song army to invade and take over many cities in a few months. No one in the imperial court could carry the burden of recovering the people, so he could only use his eldest son, who he had sent to a remote area. Although he was afraid of his son's ability, he was worried that his son would rebel once he regained control of the military power. Especially when he returned to the imperial court, he couldn't sleep well every day for fear that someone would come and tell him that his son was going to rebel. In order to regain control of the military power, he worried so much that his hair turned white. If he issued an edict to take back the military power, it would only make the imperial court bitterly disappointed and say that he was burning the bridge after crossing the river. Sichuan Emperor felt that it couldn't be better since it was his son who had taken the initiative to bring it up. He felt the most at ease with the military power in his hands. However, he still had to say some polite words. Otherwise, he would seem too heartless as an emperor. "Why did you suddenly make this decision? Haven't you been managing it well?" Xiao Su replied with a respectful expression. This decision wasn't made by this son all of a sudden. In fact, when the three armies returned, this son had already wanted imperial father to take back the military power. However, considering that the Southern Blue Continent's marriage alliance could be a smokescreen, this son decided to temporarily keep it for a period of time. I paused for a moment, and his tone became more sincere. "The reason why I made this decision is because I feel that there will always be talented people in this country. I believe that Imperial Father has a better candidate to take over this position. I have been fighting on the battlefield since I was a teenager, and have been in turmoil. Now I want to settle down and have a family. And now that the world is peaceful, we don't have to live the days of fighting and killing. I feel that this heavy burden can be lifted." These reasons were reasonable. Sichuan Emperor gradually let down his guard. At this time he remembered that his son, who did not serve him often, had fought on the battlefield for Sichuan for many years. In his heart, he felt somewhat gratified and guilty. "You said that you want a family because of that girl from the Chu clan?" It was rare for the Sichuan Emperor to be so compassionate and show concern for his son's private affairs. Xiao Su nodded and said frankly, "I am very grateful that Imperial Grandfather and Imperial Father have arranged this marriage for I. Ayan is very good. I feel very satisfied to be able to spend the rest of my life with her. I didn't expect that girl to be so charming that she can make a cold-faced war god like you admit defeat. But you didn't let down your Imperial Grandfather and my painstaking efforts." Back then, he had only agreed to his Imperial Father's absurd proposal to betroth the 10-year-old Chu Qingyan to him, because he wanted to weaken his power and prevent the left prime minister's faction from expanding. At that time, many officials in the court had stood up to oppose him. If his imperial father hadn't held the fort and shouldered most of the pressure, this marriage probably wouldn't have been settled so easily. Now, it seemed that he didn't blame his imperial father because of this matter. This was good. Many thanks to imperial father for granting this marriage. Xiao Su bowed his head and thanked his imperial father. "So many years have passed, there's no need to be so polite. But what do you plan to do after you relinquish your military power? We can arrange an idle position for you with a salary. How about it?" In order to not appear too heartless, Sichuan Emperor did his best to appear amiable and approachable. Xiao Su raised his head and looked at his imperial father who was waiting for his answer. He calmly said, "I haven't completed the mission you gave to I, so after I relinquish my position, I want to return to Lianqing and continue to supervise the search for the mineral resources in the Fuli mountain range." 5 years ago he had sent him to the Fuli mountain range to send him away. Father and son had a tacit understanding, and neither had exposed this layer of window paper. Now that he brought it up himself, it made Sichuan Emperor a bit wary. He narrowed his eyes slightly and calmly studied his son in front of him, wanting to see what he was thinking. However, he saw that his son's eyes were open and unafraid of his scrutiny. He couldn't help but wonder if Su really wanted to leave during this sensitive period for the crown prince position. "We originally transferred you there because we didn't have a suitable candidate. Why do you want to continue staying there now?" Sichuan Emperor probed. Xiao Su calmly replied, "After 5 years in Lianqing, I and Qingyan are already used to the environment there. Furthermore, Qingyan likes the local conditions and customs. She has been used to freedom since she was young, so she might not be used to living in the capital. Therefore, I felt that it would be better for us to return to Lianqing rather than stay in the capital. Furthermore, I has experienced many days of fighting and killing, so he wants to live his remaining days in peace." In order to successfully obtain his imperial father's approval, Xiao Su, who usually spoke very little, did his best to express his thoughts and strive to obtain his approval. This kind of reason was reasonable. Sichuan Emperor felt that his departure from the capital would be more beneficial to the entire court and him. "Then you're not young anymore. When do you plan to get married?" Sichuan Emperor suddenly had the conscience of a father and began to worry about their marriage. Xiao Su truthfully reported, "I plans to go back to Lianqing and simplify the arrangements. Therefore, I request that Imperial Father allow I to leave the capital and return to my fief in 10 days. Sichuan Emperor was stunned. "So soon? Your fourth brother's engagement banquet is in a month. Even if it doesn't work out, shouldn't you wait until after your third brother's wedding before leaving?" Xiao Su thought to himself that they should leave the capital as soon as possible to avoid any complications. "You should know that I likes peace and quiet. He can't stay in places that are too lively. Therefore, I feels that they are the main characters of the wedding banquet, so I won't join in the fun." Sichuan Emperor agreed. His son rarely attended banquets, so he was moved by his suggestion. He also didn't want him to stay in the capital for too long to avoid any accidents. However, if he agreed immediately, It would appear that his imperial father was too impatient to take back his military power. In the eyes of others, it would appear that he, as the monarch, was chasing away the son of a meritorious official. I'll keep your command token for now. However, I have to let imperial father consider your departure from the capital. At the very least, I have to inform your imperial mother. Sichuan Emperor stroked his beard and spoke with a troubled expression. Xiao Su could tell that his imperial father had already made a decision. However, he didn't want to give him an immediate answer because he didn't want to be criticized. A great weight was lifted from his heart. He bowed and said, "This son obeys." After Xiao Su left, Sichuan Emperor stroked the command token of the 3 armies and revealed a satisfied smile. His heart was finally at ease. However, at this moment, Eunuch Xiao came in and reported, "Your Majesty, Her Highness Consort Yu requests an audience with you for an urgent matter." Sichuan Emperor put away the command token and said in a good mood, "Let her in." Chapter 1208. The door was pushed open. The Sichuan Emperor heard the sound and looked up to see Consort Yu walk in with red and swollen eyes and a face full of tears. He was stunned and hurriedly asked, "You are what happened to you?" Consort Yu walked around the table and threw herself at the Sichuan Emperor. She hugged him and cried pitifully. The silence of a beauty's tears was better than any sound. It was even more pitiful. The Sichuan Emperor's heart immediately softened. He gently patted her back and comforted her. "Don't cry. What happened? Tell me so that I can solve it for you." When Consort Yu saw that it was about time, she wiped her tears and complained to the Sichuan Emperor. "Your Majesty, quickly go and see Ranner. Imperial physician Li said that if he doesn't make it through tonight, I'm afraid. She immediately covered her face and couldn't continue. The Sichuan Emperor was shocked. He hurriedly asked, "What happened to Ranner? Don't just cry. You have to tell me what happened." Consort Yu covered her mouth and said with tears in her eyes, "This concubine doesn't know how to tell you. The most important thing now is Ranner's health. When he wakes up, this concubine will come and apologize to you. It's all this concubine's fault for not educating him well." When he asked her, she only cried and didn't say anything. The Sichuan Emperor was anxious, but there was nothing he could do. He could only say to Eunuch Xiao, "Xiaoji, prepare the carriage. I want to see the 4th prince." Eunuch Xiao immediately went to give the order. When the Sichuan Emperor brought Consort Yu to Xiao Ran's palace, the entire palace was immersed in a very gloomy atmosphere. The Sichuan Emperor clearly felt it and immediately quickened his steps to enter the palace. Consort Yu followed behind. When she saw the Sichuan Emperor's worried expression, she sighed in relief. This time, regardless of whether Ranner could recover or not, she wanted to leave a deep impression on His Majesty. She wanted him to be unable to part with Ranner and hate Xiao Su even more. Thinking of this, she pretended to be sad and self-reproachful as she followed the Sichuan Emperor into the palace. The Sichuan Emperor was furious when he saw his sickly son lying on the bed. He immediately summoned the palace servants and gave him a harsh scolding. Only then did he know the whole story. It turned out that ever since Xiao Ran saved Jing Mingzhu, who had fallen into the water, he had caught a cold. Because of his low mood and excessive drinking, his condition had worsened. The Sichuan Emperor was furious. "What are you all doing? His Highness is so seriously ill. Don't you know how to report it? What's the use of keeping a bunch of useless people like you? Drag them away and give them 50 strokes each." The palace servants who had just been taught a lesson by Consort Yu wanted to faint when they heard the Sichuan Emperor's words. Indeed, people of different families would not enter the same house. Even the way of punishment was exactly the same. Consort Yu immediately spoke up to stop him. "Your Majesty, don't punish them. Ranner still needs them to take care of him in the future." When the Sichuan Emperor heard this, he couldn't help but sigh with emotion. "You are truly kind-hearted. All right, I'll exempt them from punishment this time. But if anything happens to Ranner, these people will all be buried with me." Imperial concubine Moon was a hypocrite. She was one person in front of others and another behind their backs. The palace maids complained incessantly. Although she had saved them, she had also punished them before. They all felt that Imperial Concubine Moon was very terrifying. But their lives were more important right now. What did Imperial Physician Li say? The Sichuan Emperor asked anxiously. Consort Yu began to cry again. Imperial Physician Li said that if Ranner's fever can subside tonight, he will be safe. If he can't, it's good that he becomes a cripple. The worst outcome is that he will never wake up. The Sichuan Emperor turned to look at his son, who was lying on the bed with a weak breath. He still remembered how high-spirited his son had been a few days ago, discussing military strategy with him. His heart ached. He flicked his sleeve and ordered, "Summon Imperial Physician Li and the others here. Tell them to guard the fourth prince. They can only leave when the fourth prince wakes up." Yes. Eunuch Xiao didn't dare delay, and immediately ordered someone to summon the Imperial Physician. Not long after Imperial Physician Li left, he was summoned again. His old body made it difficult for him to walk, but he couldn't disobey the Emperor's orders. He still brought his disciple to guard Xiao Ran's side, and checked on him from time to time. "The Empress Dowager is here. Don't worry. Let's go out first." The Sichuan Emperor comforted her gently. Consort Yu turned to look at her son, then reluctantly nodded and followed him out. When they arrived at the main hall, the Sichuan Emperor sat at the head of the table. He dismissed his attendants and asked seriously, Tell us the truth. Imperial Physician Li said that Ranner's illness is so serious because he has a mental illness. We don't understand. What mental illness can he have at his age? Moreover, we just arranged a marriage for him. He should be proud of his youth. Why did he suddenly fall ill?" When His Majesty put on this attitude, it meant that he didn't allow anyone to be perfunctory. Consort Yu didn't plan on hiding it from him for long, because he would find out sooner or later. The reason why she didn't say anything before was because the timing wasn't right. Now that he had seen Ranner, his first impression was that Ranner was seriously ill and must have suffered a great grievance. He felt very distressed. This way, no matter what she said, he would more or less be biased towards Ranner. Therefore, the timing, location, and people were all right. This was the perfect opportunity. Consort Yu was meticulous and good at reading people's minds. Especially since she had been by the Sichuan Emperor's side for so many years, she more or less understood his thoughts. That was why she had always been favored and why the Sichuan Emperor couldn't do without her. Therefore, she didn't hide anything and told him the cause and effect. Ranner, this silly child, has been thinking about Miss Chu ever since he spent some time with her 5 years ago. Now that she's back, he can't forget her and has secretly developed feelings for her. However, because of his status, he has always hidden it in his heart. A while ago, because he saved Miss Jing, His Majesty betrothed Miss Jing to him. He was greatly affected, and felt that he had let down his love for Miss Chu. He became ill from worry and drowned his sorrows in wine in the palace all day long, which caused his illness to worsen. After staying in the palace for so long, who didn't know how to act? Sometimes, when acting, even they couldn't tell if it was real or fake. Consort Yu was an expert at this. If Chu Qingyan had been present, she would have slapped the table in praise of Jiang Yi's speech. Because she blurred the truth, but didn't cover it up. What was fake and what was real and what was fake, but it made it seem more real. She made her son into a silly child who was infatuated with love. Even if the news spread, no one could blame him for this. Sichuan Emperor was a little surprised. "Is what you said true?" Consort Yu sighed and nodded. Suddenly, Sichuan Emperor came to a realization. "The Miss Chu you're talking about, it can't be the one from Suer's family, right?" Consort Yu silently shed tears when she heard this. She didn't say anything. This was a silent admission. Sichuan Emperor was stunned. His youngest son secretly fell in love with someone and fell ill because he couldn't get her. That wasn't the main point. What shocked him even more was that his eldest son had just said that he was going to leave the capital with his future wife, but now his youngest son had fallen ill because of his wife. Sichuan Emperor immediately felt a headache coming on. Consort Yu used her handkerchief to hide the sinister smile at the corner of her mouth. "Xiao Su, your people made Ranner suffer. This consort will also drag you down with her. When the time comes, let's see who has the last laugh." Chapter 1209. How did Ranner fall in love with that girl from the Chu family? The Sichuan emperor was perplexed. He couldn't understand how two people who shouldn't have interacted with each other would end up together. Consort, you had already guessed that he would ask this question, and had already prepared an answer. She sighed softly. Your Majesty, you know that Ranner is a child. Although he treats people well, he rarely plays with them. Miss Chu is about the same age as him, and has a cheerful personality. He didn't know what it was like to be young. It's normal for him to fall in love with her after interacting with her for a long time. Weren't we the same back then? Although he and Miss Chu didn't spend much time together, they could be considered childhood sweethearts. The West Xian emperor was left speechless after hearing this. Among all the children, Xiao Ran was the most similar to him, so he couldn't help but love this child more. He was also young once and could understand this feeling. However, no matter what, Chu Qingyan was Xiao Su's fiancé. Ranner's actions were too unreasonable. From the perspective of propriety, he should have reprimanded him for acting recklessly. However, he couldn't bear to reprimand his precious son who was currently lying in bed with his life hanging by a thread. Consort, you saw his conflicted expression, and knew that she had already planted a nail in Ranner's heart. Now he could only rely on himself. At this moment, Mama Jiang quickly walked over with a face full of joy. Your Majesty, Your Highness, congratulations. His Highness' fever has subsided. The Sichuan emperor and consort Yu immediately revealed joyful expressions, and immediately entered the inner hall. At this moment, Imperial Physician Li was writing a new prescription. When he saw the Sichuan emperor and consort Yu enter, he immediately stood up and bowed. Your Majesty, His Highness' fever has subsided. He's fine now. As long as he recuperates well, he'll soon recover his previous health. These words were undoubtedly a reassurance to the two of them. The Sichuan emperor was overjoyed. Good, you've done well. I will reward you handsomely. Follow Qiaoji to receive your rewards later. Imperial Physician Li and the others immediately knelt down to thank him. The West Xian emperor stayed in the room to accompany Xiao Ran for a while. Then he said to Imperial Concubine Yu, you can rest assured now. However, the heavens help the worthy. With the gods' protection, there won't be any problems. Consort Yu cried tears of joy and nodded. Ran. The Sichuan emperor's eyes flashed. He didn't want to talk about it further. Let's talk about it when Rana wakes up. Don't worry, I won't sit by and do nothing. Consort Yu nodded obediently. She could tell that His Majesty was being perfunctory. However, she was a very clear-headed person. This was also the way she got along with the Sichuan emperor. She knew that the Sichuan emperor didn't like people who pestered him endlessly. Therefore, she very gently straightened his collar and left with Nanny Jiang and the others. Seeing Consort Yu leave leisurely, the Sichuan emperor retracted his gaze. A trace of darkness flashed in his eyes. Arrange the carriage back to the imperial study. As you wish. The King of England's residence. When Xiao Su returned from the palace, he saw the little fellow sitting in the room waiting for him, as well as glutinous Riceball who was quietly squatting there. Chu Qingyan was bored to death waiting for a long time. When she heard a sound, she turned her head and saw the person standing at the door. She immediately went up to greet him happily. Big Ice Cube, you're back. Seeing the little fellow pouncing towards him, Xiao Su's lips curved into a faintly discernible smile. What was home? It was when you returned. There were steaming dishes and people waiting for you. How long have you been waiting? He walked in and took off his coat. She took his coat and hung it on the hanger. Then she smiled sweetly and said, not too much, not too little. 2 hours. Xiao Su rubbed her head. Why did you come here? I wanted to know if you managed to persuade His Majesty to let us leave earlier. She laughed mischievously. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows in surprise. How did you know I entered the palace for this matter? There's no morning court today, which means that there's nothing to do. But you entered the palace in the afternoon, so I guessed it was because of this matter. We just mentioned it last night. You've always been a man of action, so I guessed it. Look, aren't I very smart? She looked as if she was asking for praise. Xiao Su couldn't help but laugh. Not bad. You've improved. You've learned how to analyze people's personalities and make connections. Of course I'm smart. Chu Qingyan raised her chin slightly, looking very smug. Then, she regained her seriousness in a second. She took his hand and sat down. She began the questioning session. What did His Majesty say? Xiao Su blinked and didn't answer her immediately. His gaze fell on the teapot on the table. Chu Qingyan understood tacitly. She immediately poured a cup of tea and personally brought it to him. She fawned over him. His Royal Highness, this is your tea. Please enjoy. Xiao Su laughed inwardly. He didn't know where she learned this from, but her acting was quite good. He slowly tasted the tea, looking very relaxed. He wasn't in a hurry to answer. Chu Qingyan was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan, but she still had to maintain a smile and serve him sincerely. She couldn't let the big ice block see her anxiety. While tasting the tea, Xiao Su was also observing her. He found that in the past year, this little fellow had learned to regulate her emotions. At least she didn't show it. This improvement was very good. When he put down the teacup, Chu Qingyan's eyebrows twitched, but she quickly suppressed it. Xiao Su nodded in satisfaction. Seeing his reaction, Chu Qingyan was delighted. His Royal Highness, can you solve the riddle now? Xiao Su said indifferently. You can prepare to pack your luggage. She didn't react for a moment. What for? I'm asking you about the outcome of your negotiation with His Majesty today. Wait, luggage. She suddenly jumped up. You mean we can leave now? Affected by her happy mood, Xiao Su couldn't help but smile. Although Imperial Father hasn't given a clear answer, I believe that he will agree in 2 days. Chu Qingyan immediately cheered. That's great. I'll get Jasper and Xining to pack up and wait for orders. With that, she disappeared in a flash. The fragrance of her hair still lingered in the air. Xiao Su smiled gently. She was indeed a child who couldn't grow up. In the imperial study, Sichuan Emperor, who was writing and reviewing memorials, paused. He seemed to have thought of something and immediately called Qiao Jian. Your Majesty, what are your orders? Eunuch Qiao asked. Send someone to secretly investigate the King of England's situation in Lian City for 5 years. The more detailed, the better. Sichuan Emperor ordered in a deep voice. Eunuch Qiao didn't know why His Majesty wanted to investigate His Royal Highness, but he still respectfully complied. Chapter 12:10. After a few days of continuous drizzling, it started to rain again today. Peng Zhijing sat by the window with her hands on her cheeks. She was obviously in a daze. She remembered that day when Xiao Ho suddenly came to find her and took her away. She thought that he was not satisfied with teaching her a lesson that day and came to criticize her again. However, out of her expectations, his attitude that day was surprisingly good. Thinking about it later, did he have a change of heart like her? However, thinking about that day when he was beaten and scolded, that feeling was simply too great. Thinking about it now, she regretted it a little. She should have hit him a few more times to vent her anger. This was a rare opportunity. However, what was more embarrassing was that she unknowingly fell asleep on his body. When she woke up the next day, she was already on her own bed. Her guard was too low. Ever since she came to this strange world, she had never had a good night's sleep. Only that night when she was on his body did she have a deep sleep. However, he was too much. He actually used her fear of heights to threaten her. He was simply too treacherous. She changed her position and leaned on the table. The rain outside was hazy and gradually blurred her eyes. She thought back to that night. His lips curved into a gentle smile, the way he reached out to touch her hair, the way he hugged her, and the way he acted like a shrew. Her heart suddenly felt like it was soaked in honey. It was so sweet that she couldn't help but smile. She sighed softly. Sure enough, she could not stand gentle attacks the most. That was why she forgave him so easily. What are you thinking about? Why are you so engrossed? A crisp and soft voice sounded in her ear. I'm thinking about that bastard Xiao Ho. He actually threatened me. She blurted out without thinking. After she said it, she realized that the voice was very familiar. It did not sound like Luer's voice. She immediately turned her head. A beautiful figure was standing at the door, smiling gently at her. Peng Zhijing was stunned. Why are you here? I had nothing to do, so I came to sit with you. Chu Qingyan stepped into the room, patted the raindrops off her body, and asked with a smile, Why? Am I not welcome? How would I dare? The King Consort of England has graced my humble abode with your presence. Peng Zhijing immediately ran over like a lackey. She served them tea and water while massaging their shoulders and backs. Lu Er, who was standing at the side, was dumbfounded. Peng Zhijing glared at her fiercely and said, Qingyan is here. Why didn't you tell me? I couldn't even take care of myself and embarrassed myself in front of the beauty. Lu Er said innocently, Princess, I've called you several times just now, but you ignored me. Chu Qingyan chimed in from the side. I can vouch for that. From this, it can be seen that you were too engrossed in thinking about your lord. You didn't even realize that the few of us were here. Xining and Jasper nodded in agreement. Like master, like servant. Peng Zhijing felt that everyone in the room was looking at her with an indescribable, ambiguous gaze. She suddenly felt a headache coming on. She hurriedly begged for mercy. All right, don't make fun of me anymore. Otherwise, I'll cry in front of you. Everyone roared with laughter. By the way, one doesn't visit a temple without a reason. Qingyan, why are you looking for me? She had a vague guess in her heart, but she didn't dare to be honest. She was afraid that she would be disappointed if she wasn't. Chu Qingyan stopped drinking her tea and looked at her from the corner of her eyes. Why? Can't I come to see you? Peng Zhijing laughed, then said seriously. Come out for a walk in this weather? Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? Hearing her description, Chu Qingyan wanted to nod. I do have something to talk to you about. As she spoke, she looked at the people in the room and raised her eyebrows slightly. Peng Zhijing understood and turned to Lu Er. Go to the kitchen and prepare some pastries to entertain the guests. Chu Qingyan gave Xining a look. Xining smiled and said, Sister Lu Er, I'll go with you. I know what my master likes. Lu Er agreed happily. After Lu Er was sent away, Chu Qingyan instructed Jasper, keep a lookout. If anyone comes near, inform us immediately. Yes. Soon, only the two of them were left in the room. Peng Zhijing was a little surprised. What's the matter? Why are you being so mysterious? It's a mysterious matter, of course. Chu Qingyan smiled. She didn't beat around the bush and asked directly. Have you thought about it? Are you really not going to stay by Xiaoho's side? Seeing that she was asking seriously, Peng Zhijing didn't dare to be vague. She nodded solemnly. I've thought about it. After saying that, a bitter smile slowly appeared on her face. Actually, I've already thought about it. This thought hasn't changed since the beginning. Yes, in these few months of being together, I've been moved by him. But he has also clearly warned me not to have any thoughts about him because he won't have any response. Chu Qingyan could hear her disappointment. She couldn't help but reach out and place her hand on the back of her hand, silently comforting her. She smiled at Chu Qingyan, then continued. So since he said so, do I have to be so thick-skinned and pester him? When she said this, she was actually asking herself. I hate being pestered by people I don't like the most. I put myself in their shoes and don't do to others what I don't want done to me. So I don't want to become the person I hate. Besides, I'm only a few years old and haven't seen much of the world. I've only seen so many men. Maybe when I go out and meet more people, I'll realize that there's always someone better than me and that there's always someone better. There's no such thing as a Mr. Right everywhere. When that time comes, I'll be dazzled. When that time comes, peach blossoms will bloom. This was her innate spirit to relieve her boredom. She was always able to find some entertainment for herself in the most miserable times. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she was both sad and amused. She joked, Isn't this a case of a Xiaoho collapsing and thousands of Xiaoho standing up? Right. Qingyan, your description is simply too apt. We can't hang ourselves on a crooked tree. Even if this tree is inlaid with gold and silver. We can't be corrupted by riches and honor. We can't be swayed by poverty and humility. And we can't yield to force. Peng Zhijing clenched her fists tightly to encourage herself. Chu Qingyan made an S sound. Was this warning used in this kind of situation? But she was still amused by this clown. All right, then I'll tell you the truth. We've helped you. You see, when you want to leave, just let us know in advance. We'll arrange it for you. At the same time, we'll prepare another identity for you, so that you can leave the identity of a princess and start a new life. After joking around, Chu Qingyan went straight to the main topic, and told her the purpose of today's visit. That's great. I knew it was the right choice to look for you guys. Peng Zhijing suddenly hugged her and happily jumped up and down. Chu Qingyan lightly patted her back but asked the question in her heart. If Xiao also likes you, will you stay? The person hugging her instantly stopped jumping up and down. Chapter 12:11. It was as if a burning candle flame had been blown out by a gust of wind with a pop sound. Peng Zhijing let go of Chu Qingyan's arms, and a strange expression appeared on her face. It was as if she was mocking herself, but also as if she was laughing. How is that possible? How could he possibly fall for me? We've never been on the same page. Chu Qingyan could clearly feel that she was in low spirits, but she felt that she had to face this problem head-on. She had seen the way Xiao looked at Peng Zhijing before, and it was very different from usual. Or rather, he would only look at Peng Zhijing that way. It was both helpless and subconsciously protective. If he didn't treat her differently, with Xiao's scheming personality, it was impossible for him to show that he treated someone differently, unless he himself didn't realize it. Zhijing, you can't be so absolute. Liking someone is something that you can't control. There aren't many people who can treat their feelings rationally. Answer my question properly. I don't want you to regret it when the time comes. If you have regrets, won't we become sinners who break up other people's marriages? Peng Zhijing understood what she meant. She couldn't let Qingyan and the others have any worries, so she thought about it seriously, and answered her question seriously. If Xiao also likes me, I won't stay. Why? Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. Peng Zhijing puffed up her cheeks and said, perhaps some people will lose themselves the deeper they fall in love, but I'm the kind of person who becomes more clear-headed the deeper they fall. I know the gap between me and him. He has great ambitions, but I'm just a sparrow who wants to eat its fill. He has his own plans, and his identity and environment have shaped his personality. He's a big wolf, and I'm like a rabbit in front of him. If I stay, I'll only be eaten alive by him. But a high IQ doesn't necessarily mean a high EQ. So I think that since you're so smart, maybe the one who will be eaten alive is not you, but him. Chu Qingyan tilted her head and interjected. Peng Zhijing said with a troubled expression, but I don't like to share my husband with others. But with his identity, it's inevitable that he'll have many wives. If we can't love each other wholeheartedly, then it's better to forget about each other. I don't want to become a resentful woman who stays in her room alone for the rest of her life. At this point, Peng Zhijing suddenly looked up and smiled sincerely. I'm a sparrow. I should live in the sky. I shouldn't break my wings and be trapped in a cage for someone who doesn't belong to me. In this life, we should learn to love ourselves before we can love others. Also, in this princess's life, there are no ifs, only consequences and results. She said resolutely. Chu Qingyan was moved by her words, and was filled with admiration and gratification. All right, Princess Yanke, I'll give you full marks for your answer. I'm not afraid of you becoming arrogant. Peng Zhijing gave a fake bow. Many thanks for the Princess Consort's praise. Yanke is truly overwhelmed by this favor. All right, let's not waste time. Let's make it clear first. We'll leave after we finish that matter. She waved her hand and had her sit down as she spoke in a serious tone. That matter was the polishing of the remaining 2 keys. Peng Zhijing readily agreed. All right, I understand. She didn't want to escape halfway and be caught by Xiao again. If that happened, she might never have a chance to leave again. So for safety's sake, she had to get rid of all her worries. Actually, we'll be leaving the capital soon. If you don't have a place to go in the future, you can come find us at His Highness Fief. Chu Qingyan gave her an olive branch. She really liked this little princess and didn't want to lose contact with her like this. Peng Zhijing was surprised at first, but then she asked in a voice filled with doubt. Why did you suddenly decide to leave? Although I'm not from the Sichuan kingdom, I've heard that the court is currently in a heated argument over who should be the crown prince. Why are you leaving at this time? Chu Qingyan shrugged. What's so strange about this? The position of crown prince belongs to the capable. Our Highness doesn't have any thoughts about it. Moreover, we didn't decide to leave at the last minute. We wanted to return to Lian City a long time ago, but your arrival disrupted our plans. Peng Zhijing thought in her heart. Then what was Xiao fighting over there for? The King of England didn't care about the throne at all. So why was there a need for him to go against him? However, this had nothing to do with her. In any case, she had already decided to leave this place in the future. Thus, Peng Zhijing placed her thoughts on Qin Yan's invitation. All right, if I have nowhere else to go, you have to take me in. Chu Qingyan looked at her pretending to wipe her tears and couldn't help but shake her head. What a clown! Thinking that this place was different from the outside, Chu Qingyan prepared to leave with her people after they finished talking about business. When she walked out of the door, she suddenly stopped in her tracks and squinted in the direction of Peng Zhijing's window. Peng Zhijing, who was standing at the door to see her off, couldn't help but ask in confusion. What's wrong? There was no one in that place. Chu Qingyan frowned. Could it be that she had sensed wrongly? When she heard Peng Zhijing's question, she withdrew her gaze and smiled. Nothing, then I'm leaving. You don't have to see me off, it's still raining outside. With that, Xining opened an umbrella and strolled into the rain. After watching Chu Qingyan leave, Peng Zhijing entered the door in a good mood. And in the place that Chu Qingyan had been paying attention to just now, there was an extra person in the courtyard after it became quiet again. Xiao squinted in the direction that Chu Qingyan had left, then turned to look through the window. In his vision, Peng Zhijing was humming a song and chewing on a pastry in a good mood. When Chu Qingyan arrived just now, he happened to be here as well. Because he saw that there were people guarding the door, he made a detour to this place and heard every single word of their conversation. When the girl inside admitted that she liked him, he couldn't help but be shocked. The sound of the rain instantly faded away, leaving only her bold confession. Did she like him? But she liked him, but wanted to leave him. Moreover, in Chu Qingyan's assumption, even if he liked her, she would choose to leave. Just because she didn't want to share herself with others. She even described herself as a sparrow who didn't know the ambitions of a swan. Xiao felt like he was meeting her for the first time. She could boldly admit that she liked him, but didn't pester him, and didn't expect anything in return. Even if the other party had the same intentions, she would still let go. This kind of woman who dared to love and hate made his heart inexplicably move, as if something was about to break out from the bottom of his heart. But Xiao wasn't worried at all. She could escape. On the contrary, he was very confident that as long as he wanted to find her, she definitely wouldn't be able to escape from his grasp. At this time, he was more concerned about Xiao Su's impending departure from the capital. Reality proved that the news he received from the palace was correct. Xiao Su had already asked Imperial Father for permission to leave the capital. Because of this, his plan had to change. Chapter 12:12. Just as Peng Zhijing was humming enthusiastically, a person suddenly appeared at the door. She jumped in fright, but when she looked closely, it was that hypocrite who only knew how to threaten people. She said unhappily, "What are you doing here? Is this how you treat a guest?" Xiao walked in and raised his brows when he heard her tone. "My apologies, it's because my temple is small and can't accommodate a big Buddha like you. So turn around and walk straight out. Take care, I won't send you off." Peng Zhijing waved at him and warmly bid him farewell. Xiao's eyes twitched. Was this the same person who said that she liked him? They were two completely different people. Xiao ignored her and sat down. "This prince came today to see if there's anything you need. What do you want to do?" Peng Zhijing immediately stared at him vigilantly. One who was unaccountably solicitous was hiding evil intentions. Xiao looked at her vigilant expression and his face darkened. "The wedding is next month. If you're not prepared, both of us will lose face." So it was a matter of face. Peng Zhijing cooperated and said, "Our southern blue has vast lands and abundant resources. Whatever you have, we have too. We don't lack anything. Xiao looked at her suspiciously. Your southern blue is either a grassland or a desert. Is it appropriate to have vast lands and abundant resources? Peng Zhijing choked on her saliva. Heavens, she actually forgot that southern blue was a barren place where even birds didn't lay eggs. He couldn't have seen through it, right? Xiao didn't bicker with her and said directly, if you lack anything, just send someone to the prince's residence to find the steward. Peng Zhijing nodded obediently, then asked curiously, you could have just sent someone to talk to me. Why did you have to come here personally? Xiao choked on her words. He just wanted to visit her on a whim this morning, and didn't think too much about it. Now that he was asked so bluntly, his expression couldn't help but become a little unnatural. I was just passing by. Don't think too much. Peng Zhijing was at a loss. I didn't think too much. I just thought that you were too idle. Also, aren't you pretending to be sick? Don't you feel that you're attracting attention by going out every day? The first sentence made Xiao's face darken, but the last sentence reminded him. I wanted to say that I have time to accompany you to Linlang Pavilion, to pick out some jewelry. But since you said so, this prince will go back to recuperate too. He stood up and pretended to leave. So let's go pick out jewelry. And flattery. To pick. To pick? Xiao was surprised at how quickly her face changed. He sighed heavily in his heart. He felt that this little rascal was really too much of a rascal. No matter what he said, she had her own reasons. How many times do you want to bow to heaven and earth? Peng Zhijing wanted to say that where she came from, she could get divorced and then remarry. So she could marry many times in her life and marry many people. But just as she was about to open her mouth, she saw his gloomy face looking at her. She immediately swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth and hurriedly explained. What are you saying? Of course it's a lifetime. Are you the one who wants to marry many concubines? She immediately turned the tables and threw the blame away. She couldn't help but praise herself for being quick-witted. Her words reminded him of what she had said to Chu Qingyan previously. He really wanted to tell her that he had promised his mother that he would only marry one wife in this lifetime. However, just as the words were about to come out of his mouth, he saw her smug look and changed his mind. He did not want her to be too smug. That's not something you should care about. You have to know that for people of royal birth like us, it's normal for marriage to be used as an alliance. So you have to be a magnanimous wife. His words made the smile on Peng Zhijing's lips freeze. She had guessed correctly. The ancients had many wives and concubines, let alone someone like him who could use his marriage as a bargaining chip. However, knowing was one thing, and confirming it was another. She felt a pain in her heart that made it difficult for her to breathe. Sure enough, all men in the world were black. Okay. Don't worry, I'll be a magnanimous wife. With that, she stomped on his foot and walked out with heavy steps. Xiao looked down at the clear shoe print on his foot, and his face couldn't help but darken. Who was the one who said that she wanted to run away from the marriage? And now she was still acting with him. But thinking back to her angry look, it seemed like she was really angry. He raised his eyebrows. Forget it, he would tell her the truth after they got married. For now, he had to punish her for wanting to run away from the marriage. Peng Zhijing, who had run out, suddenly came to a realization. Why was she angry? Once she left this place, whether he lived or died was none of her business. Marrying 8 or 10 concubines wasn't as thing. Although that was what she said, she was still angry. She forgot that she was in the courtyard and stomped her foot subconsciously, splashing the muddy water under her feet. She subconsciously wanted to jump to the side, but she didn't expect to step on the moss. Her whole body was like a slide as she slid down. Seeing that she was about to fall into the puddle and become a big-faced cat, she instantly closed her eyes and shouted, "Xiao, help!" Whoosh whoosh. The sound of clothes ripping through the air was drowned out by her cries. A blue figure quickly flashed out of the room and appeared beside her in the blink of an eye. At the critical moment, he picked her up by the waist and then tiptoed back to the corridor. Peng Zhijing grabbed his arm in shock and said with a sad face, "I almost embarrassed myself." "Do you have many embarrassing things?" Since the first time they met, when had she not smashed her own foot with a rock? He was already used to it. Peng Zhijing snorted. You don't know what is tactful at all. Hurry and put me down. Hearing her arrogant tone, Xiao felt rather helpless. It seemed that after being carried many times, she had gotten used to it and no longer had the restraint that a woman should have. After landing, she turned around and found that her body was as clean as before. She was in a good mood. Xiao, you are just like Doraemon. Every time you are able to save me from danger. That only proves that you are too stupid. But who is Doraemon? Xiao's voice tightened as he coldly stared at her. Peng Zhijing was completely unaware as she chuckled. It is an omnipotent super-powerful Doraemon. It has all kinds of treasures and is simply a must-have partner for traveling. More powerful than me? He said sinisterly. You can't even compare to one of its fingers. After saying this, she suddenly felt that something was missing from beside her. She turned around and saw that Xiao had already walked away. Peng Zhijing rubbed her head. How could this person just leave like that without waiting for me? Hey, slow down a bit. Wait for me. One in front and the other behind. Her clothes fluttered and jealousy overflowed. Chapter 12-13. After Xiao Ran's fever subsided, he had stayed in the palace to rest. Although he had woken up, his heart disease and physical illness kept repeating. The imperial physician was helpless, and could only report the truth to the Sichuan emperor. After the morning court, the Sichuan emperor appeared in front of Xiao Ran's bed. Xiao Ran's expression was desolate. It was unknown what he was thinking. When he raised his head, he suddenly saw his imperial father standing by the bed. He froze at first, then wanted to get up and bow. I didn't know imperial father had arrived. Forgive my rudeness. The Sichuan emperor walked over and pressed on his shoulder. He warmly said, You haven't recovered yet, so there's no need to be so courteous. Lie down and talk. Xiao Ran finally straightened up and leaned against the bed. He guiltily asked, Imperial father, why did you come? He didn't know how much his imperial father had seen of his rudeness just now. The Sichuan emperor sat down on the chair that the palace servants had brought over. He looked at Xiao Ran and slowly said, The imperial physician said that your illness has been recurring and is difficult to treat. Imperial father was worried about you and came over after the morning court. Xiao Ran's face was full of guilt. I was useless and made imperial father and mother worry. You don't have to blame yourself. If it's a physical illness, then take medicine. The Sichuan emperor considered his tone before continuing. But the imperial physician said that you have a heart disease. A heart disease needs to be treated with medicine. You can tell imperial father, what is troubling you? Perhaps imperial father can help you resolve it. Xiao Ran met his imperial father's affectionate eyes in shock. Hearing his gentle and patient voice, he suddenly wanted to tell his imperial father everything that was bothering him. Ever since he was young, his imperial mother had been a strict teacher. She wanted him to be the best at everything. She had arranged for him to learn all his homework and skills. Everything was expected of him with the highest standards. Compared to his imperial mother, his imperial father was more like a good teacher and friend. He would discuss and share everything with his imperial father, so his relationship with his imperial father was even closer. However, he was too embarrassed to say it because the person he liked was his eldest brother's fiancée in name. He was afraid that his imperial father would reprimand him for neglecting human relations, so he was hesitant. The Sichuan emperor could see his fourth son's hesitation. In front of him, his son was like a blank piece of paper that had never been embellished. In his life, whether it was civil and military officials, concubines in the imperial harem, or descendants of the imperial family, all of them had complicated hearts and had to be on guard at all times. Therefore, he was more willing to treat Xiao Ran, who was more like a blank piece of paper. In front of imperial father, do you still need to hide? Sichuan emperor stroked his beard and looked at him encouragingly. Xiao Ran hesitated for a while. In the end, he decided to find someone to talk to. In all these years, he had never told a second person about his secret love for Qin Yan, or his guilt towards his eldest brother. Imperial father, I fell in love with a girl. 5 years ago, I was young and frivolous. He relied on his status to look down on others. Therefore, when we met for the first time, it was very dramatic. I almost taught her a lesson, but he sank into his memories and his entire face was brimming with a smile. She was a very smart and quick-witted girl. She didn't fear I at all because of my status. On the contrary, she even taught I a lesson. He shook his head as if he was helpless about his past. At the time, I was not convinced. However, he didn't expect that she would be poisoned because of me. I felt very guilty. The second time someone tried to assassinate I, she was implicated. Over and over again, I brought her a lot of disasters, but she never blamed I for it. From then on, I began to pay attention to her. Sichuan Emperor listened quietly. Once this son in front of him started talking, he couldn't stop. It was as if he had been holding it in for a long time, and couldn't find an outlet to vent. Of course, at that time, I was simply curious about her. I wondered how she could have so many principles with such a small body. She was sensible and smart. Gradually, we became friends. At this point, Xiao Ran raised his head and looked at Sichuan Emperor. There was some excitement in his eyes. Imperial Father, do you know? So this is what it feels like to have a friend. To share blessings and misfortunes together, it's very satisfying. In the past, I thought that I didn't need friends. It wasn't until I met her that I realized that there were many things in the world that I hadn't come into contact with. It was so novel. His eyes were bright and clear. Sichuan Emperor was surprised. Even though he had raised him for so many years, he had never seen him like this. The more I spent time with her, the more I appreciated her. Gradually, she changed in I's heart. When I saw her, my heart would beat faster, and my face would blush. When I talked to her, I couldn't help but feel nervous. I was very concerned about my image in front of her. Moreover, I often paid attention to her. Her every frown and smile could be treasured in my heart for a long time. Until the 5 years when we were separated, I relied on those memories to miss her. Now that she has returned, I realized that I couldn't let go of her. Xiao Ran said word by word. He was incomparably serious, but his eyes couldn't hide the loneliness in them. Seeing his youngest son like this, Sichuan Emperor, as an experienced person, could already see that his youngest son was deeply in love. When he thought of that person's identity, Sichuan Emperor felt his entire head begin to hurt. Don't tell me that the girl you're talking about is Xiao Su's family's Chu Qingyan? Xiao Ran was shocked. He didn't expect his imperial father to know. However, when he remembered that his imperial father was the smartest person he knew, he wasn't surprised. He rubbed his nose. His eyes flickered, and he didn't dare to look directly at his imperial father. Imperial father, if the person I was talking about was her, would you be angry? I actually disregarded human relations and took a fancy to his future sister-in-law. Sichuan Emperor sighed heavily and shook his head. Ran, are you? How can you be so muddle-headed? Xiao Ran lowered his head and refuted. Imperial father, I can't control feelings. If she wants to be moved, it's not something I can control. I can only soberly watch myself fall. The West Xian Emperor was rendered speechless by his words, because he could understand this feeling. Who hadn't fallen in love when they were young? The two of them were silent for a while, as if they both needed time to sort out this matter. After a while, Xiao Ran suddenly looked up. Imperial father, I have a question to ask you. In the past, whenever Xiao Ran had any problems, he would ask him for help. Thus, Sichuan Emperor nodded and indicated for him to speak. Xiao Ran sighed deeply, and then asked a completely unrelated question. Imperial father, if there was something you really wanted, what would you do? Sichuan Emperor said without hesitation. I would think of a way to obtain it. Sichuan Emperor's heart thumped when he heard this. Only then did he realize what his son was asking. Xiao Ran's eyes immediately lit up and shone brightly. Chapter 12:14. Imperial father, is what you said true? Can I really fight for her? Xiao Ran was full of hope, as though he had grasped at a life-saving straw. Sichuan Emperor knew that Xiao Ran was having a mental breakdown at this moment. If he discouraged him, it would be even worse. He was silent for a moment before saying, "If you can fight for it, then it's yours. If you can't, then it proves that it doesn't belong to you. Just let nature take its course." As the person with the highest authority in the country, he was responsible for the rise and fall of the entire country. He had to create an environment for the people to live and work in peace and contentment. He had to put in more effort than ordinary people. He satisfied himself in private matters, so that he would have enough energy and not be distracted by the country. Therefore, Sichuan Emperor didn't think that there was anything wrong with taking things by force. Moreover, all the land under the heavens belonged to the emperor, and all the people on the shores of the land were the emperor's subjects. The entire Sichuan belonged to the Xiao family, not to mention women. As an emperor, he could get whatever he wanted. There was nothing he couldn't get. If Chu Qingyan wasn't Xiao Su's fiancée, he might have betrothed her to Xiao Ran with the stroke of his pen. His son rarely took the initiative to ask for anything, so if he did, he would satisfy him. As long as you were in a high position, no one would dare to question your decisions. Those emperors who had gone down in history for 10,000 years were only famous because he wasn't strong enough. History had always been written by the victors. Xiao Ran's eyes lit up. He felt that his father made sense. He immediately perked up. "Imperial father, then can you help I?" Sichuan Emperor looked at him steadily. "What do you want me to help you with?" Xiao Ran sat up straight and said seriously, "I confessed his feelings to Qingyan a few days ago, but she rejected I was very upset at that time, but after thinking about it carefully, it should be because she was engaged to her eldest brother. She didn't want to disobey the decree, so she didn't dare to accept so I wanted a fair chance to compete." Sichuan Emperor felt that his son was a little bold, but it was rare to see him so persistent about something. He couldn't help but be curious. What kind of fair opportunity? Xiao Ran said without hesitation, "I want father to cancel the engagement between Qingyan and eldest brother. When she is no longer bound by the engagement, she will definitely be able to make the most sincere choice." Even the Sichuan Emperor, who was used to grand occasions, was shocked by this answer. He didn't expect Qin Haodong to be so bold. "Are you sure that Chu girl doesn't like your eldest brother, and isn't just being perfunctory?" Sichuan Emperor felt that this question needed to be clarified. Xiao Ran nodded solemnly. "Imperial father, I feel that eldest brother treats Qingyan just like how he treats us, his younger siblings. When you issued the decree to marry Qingyan to eldest brother, Qingyan was only 10 years old and hadn't reached marriageable age. Eldest brother is so much older than her, so they don't have anything in common. Moreover, ever since eldest brother became an adult, he hasn't been close to any girl. It's said that he is addicted to war and doesn't get close to women at all. I is also afraid that Qingyan is too young to understand and will suffer in the future." Sichuan Emperor frowned slightly as he listened to Qin Haodong's story, but he didn't interrupt. Even after his youngest son finished speaking, his face was still cold and solemn. Xiao Ran waited for a while. When he didn't see any reaction from his imperial father, he couldn't help but ask, "Imperial father, were you listening just now?" Sichuan Emperor turned to look at him. His eyes were no longer as gentle as before. Although they were still affectionate, he asked cautiously, "Have you considered the consequences? If Chu girl doesn't choose you in the end, what will you do?" Xiao Ran was stunned. He couldn't help but recall the bits and pieces of his interactions with Qingyan. The worry on his face slowly turned into determination. "Imperial father, don't worry. I will definitely move Qingyan. Didn't you say that I have to give it my all in everything I do? If I don't do it, then it means that I didn't work hard enough. I will definitely do my best to marry Qingyan and make her your daughter-in-law. I will tell you that Qingyan is different from the other girls in the capital. She's very virtuous, obedient, and sensible. She's also very smart and witty. You'll definitely like her when you see her." Although his eldest son didn't praise Chu Qingyan the day before yesterday, his words still expressed his affirmation of her. Today he heard his youngest son sparing no effort in praising her. He couldn't help but be curious. When he saw Chu Qingyan at the palace banquet, although she was astonishingly beautiful, was she really so good that she could gain the favor of both of his sons at the same time? Imperial father, what are you thinking about? Xiao Ran found that his father was once again distracted. He couldn't help but speak with some helplessness. The Sichuan emperor lowered his brows and thought for a while. He then stood up and put his hands behind his back. He looked down at him condescendingly. Your fever has just subsided and your body is still very weak. You should recuperate well first. Imperial father will listen to what you said just now. We'll talk about it again after you've recovered. Imperial father. Could it be that he still couldn't move his father after saying so much? Xiao Ran leaned forward a little anxiously. The Sichuan emperor couldn't bear to see him suffering emotional torment, but he couldn't give him an answer at this moment. Ranner, Imperial father will give you time to think about it. You can't just think about yourself because that person is your eldest brother. If the engagement is broken off, it will be embarrassing for your eldest brother, both in public and private. Moreover, this is a serious matter. You also have to consider the several parties in the imperial court, the right prime minister behind you, and other forces. This is not a simple matter. Imperial father will say this much. You should recuperate well. Imperial father will come to see you in a few days. With that, the Sichuan emperor turned and left. Xiao Ran looked at his father's back as he left without hesitation. He suddenly felt isolated and helpless. Could it be that Imperial father was also on the side of his eldest brother? Imperial father wasn't like this in the past. He would give him anything he wanted. Xiao Ran lay on the bed, his whole person lifeless. The Sichuan emperor didn't return to the imperial study. Instead, he took Xiaoji to walk around the imperial garden. Xiaoji, how long has it been since the two children of the imperial family fought over a woman? When they walked to the White Jade Bridge, the Sichuan emperor spoke faintly. Xiaoji thought for a moment and replied, back then, King Kuan and Imperial Prince Su fought over the same woman. In the end, both of them died. King Kuan and Imperial Prince Su were the half-brothers of the Emperor Emeritus. At that time, the Emperor Emeritus wanted to be an idle lord and travel around. However, because the Crown Prince, King Kuan, and the God of War, Imperial Prince Su, liked the same woman, they started a fight. In the end, it led to a war. Both of them died on the battlefield, and the innocent Emperor Emeritus was brought back to inherit the throne. Do you feel that the story is inexplicably overlapping? The Sichuan emperor said with a slightly cold expression. Xiaoji replied with some fear. It seems to be a bit similar to the situation of the fourth prince, the King of England. The Sichuan emperor sneered. Then tell me, who should I betroth Chu Qingyan to prevent history from repeating itself? Chapter 12:15. As soon as the Sichuan emperor said this, Eunuch Chao's forehead broke out in a cold sweat. This was an important issue. How could a lowly servant like him casually comment on it? It was better to play it safe. Eunuch Chao lowered his eyes and bowed. If your majesty doesn't understand, then this old servant is even more clueless. I just feel that Miss Chu is not inferior to those noble young ladies in terms of appearance or talent. The Sichuan emperor turned to look at the old man who had followed him for decades. He couldn't help but sneer. You sly servant. Every time I ask you something, you hesitate to answer. You don't want to offend anyone. How can you share my burdens like this? Eunuch Chao bowed even lower and said fearfully, Your Majesty, this old servant's words carry little weight. I'm stupid and stupid. Now that I'm old, my brain is even worse. You can ask this servant to do manual labor in the future, but this old servant really can't help with important matters like this. Seeing that Eunuch Chao was frightened, the Sichuan emperor lost interest in asking further. He sighed softly. Time makes people grow old. I'm also old. In the future, I'll have to hand over the country to the next generation. Eunuch Chao hurriedly said, Your Majesty is still so young. How can you be old? The world is at peace now because Your Majesty has ruled the country well. The Sichuan emperor shook his head and laughed. You don't have the ability to do things, but your flattery skills are second to none. Eunuch Chao smiled. Thank you for your praise, Your Majesty. You. He really didn't know what to do with this old man. However, after the Sichuan emperor stopped smiling, His entire person became gloomy. The matter with Ranner could only be delayed for now. After opening his heart to heart with Ranner today, he realized that Ranner was too obsessed with Chu Qingyan, to the point that he was blinded. It was his wishful thinking that Ranner had no feelings for Chu Qingyan, but in reality, Su'er was very satisfied with Chu Qingyan as his fiancée. If he forcefully separated the two of them, even if Xiao Su originally had no feelings for her, it would undoubtedly be a slap to his face if he publicly called off the engagement. Even if he did not like his son, Su'er, he still had to protect the face of the imperial family. Moreover, Su'er had already handed over his token at this time, and planned to return to Lianqing and never return to the capital. For him, this was a great thing. He could legitimately make Ranner the crown prince, so he didn't want to cause any more trouble. But when he thought of Ranner's pleading eyes before he left, he suddenly hesitated. It was not impossible to betroth Chu Qingyan to his youngest son, but he needed some time to weigh the pros and cons. Thinking of this, the Sichuan emperor held his forehead with a headache. "Qiaoji, let's go back to the imperial study." "Yes." Eunuch Qiao immediately followed. A few days later, Consort Yu knew that her son had revealed his feelings to His Majesty, but since His Majesty left the palace, he had no intention of mentioning this matter at all. She was very anxious. Ranner's condition had improved a lot in the past 2 days, but his mood was still very low. He was sick all day and was completely dispirited. He was not as motivated as before, so she felt that she should do something. On this day, Dongting Fan appeared in the Moon Palace. "You sent me several letters in succession. Is there something urgent?" Dongting Fan was still dressed in a black robe, and a black hat tightly covered his face. Only 2 eyes were exposed, making him look very gloomy. Consort Yu was very surprised to see him suddenly appear. She didn't hide anything and told him about Ranner's feelings for Chu Qingyan, then asked him what he thought. Dongting Fan frowned when he heard this. Now is the critical time to appoint the crown prince. His Highness is sick and troubled by love. If this news spreads, it will affect the neutral minister's evaluation of him. Consort Yu said worriedly, "This is also what I'm worried about. I originally thought that I could borrow His Majesty's hand to break the engagement between Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan, then provoke Xiao Su to resist and oppose His Majesty. When the time comes, we can simply frame him with a crime. Then he won't have a chance to turn things around. Your plan is feasible. Xiao Su is a sleeping lion. In the past, he resigned himself to adversity only because it didn't touch his bottom line. Now that this is a matter of face, if he resists, it's not impossible to accuse him of treason. But the key is, will His Majesty do this?" After Dongting Fan finished his analysis, he raised the most important question. Consort Yu heard this and slammed the table hatefully. "Until now, there hasn't been any news from His Majesty in the past 2 days. Recently, he's been sleeping in his own palace. Perhaps he's afraid that I'll ask about it, so he's avoiding me. Since His Majesty is unreliable, do you have other plans by calling me here?" Dongting Fan went straight to the point. He didn't like to hear her talk about her relationship with the Sichuan emperor. Consort Yu couldn't help but say, "Senior brother, you know me best. I do have an idea, and I hope you can help me." "Just say it." Dongting Fan wasn't surprised. "Just now, you said that it's a sensitive period for the selection of the crown prince. Ranner can't afford to make any mistakes. Therefore, Chu Qingyan is an uncertain factor that will affect his future. So, I want you to secretly get rid of her, so that Ranner won't have any thoughts about her. Without destruction, there can be no construction. Perhaps Ranner will suffer for a while, but it won't last forever. Only when Chu Qingyan is dead can he be at ease and marry Jing Mingzhu and focus on preparing to become the crown prince." Consort Yu had a vicious heart. Everything was in the way of her son and her family's bright future. She wanted to uproot everything and not allow any accidents to happen. Dongting Fan didn't agree or disagree with her suggestion. "Don't you have a son who's very skilled in martial arts? Sending him to kill Chu Qingyan should be more than enough." Consort Yu's eyes lit up as she suggested. Dongting Fan remembered that he had just injured his son a few days ago. It wasn't appropriate to send him out now, so he thought of someone. More than 10 years ago, I planted a pawn by Xiao Su's side. Now, it's time for him to be put to good use. Consort Yu also remembered that she had once suggested to him that he should send someone to hide by Xiao Su's side, so that they could be put to good use in the future. However, so many years had passed that she had already forgotten about it. Now that he mentioned it, she vaguely remembered. Will that work? Consort Yu was a little worried. Dongting Fan chuckled softly. I'm afraid that no one would expect this person to be from the Moon Palace. He's also deeply trusted by the King of England, so this person is the most suitable. With his words, Consort Yu was relieved. All right, I'll leave this matter to you. Dongting Fan nodded. Inside the King of England's residence, Huang Yi was inspecting the newly purchased steamer basket. Because Grandmaster Chu had been craving buns recently, the steamer basket in the kitchen had been left unused for too long and was spoiled, so she had specially asked someone to buy another one. After opening the steamer basket, she suddenly found a bamboo tube that was as wide as a finger. She picked it up and saw a piece of paper inside. She paused for a moment, then took it out and unfolded it to read. Kill Chu Qingyan. The signature below was the Moon Palace's unique insignia. Chapter 12-16. Ever since he had been in contact with Pang Zhijing for the past 2 days, Xiao had gradually gotten used to this little rascal circling around him. Because of her arrival, his peaceful life had slowly become a pool of water. However, he didn't hate this kind of life. On the contrary, he found it more enjoyable. It was like adding a few more drops of paint to the plain water. It was pleasing to the eye. One day, Xiao took her out to buy clothes. Xiao, are you too idle these days? Or did you succeed in scheming against someone? Is that why you have the mood to stroll around? Because he forced her to wear a veil hat. She couldn't see the road clearly. Pang Zhijing was full of anger. She walked beside him and spared no effort in mocking him. Xiao knew she was dissatisfied, so he didn't want to argue with her. He didn't want her to be more aggressive. Unfortunately, he had underestimated her ability to fight for a long time. His refusal to accept the challenge had ignited her fighting spirit. Xiao, are you mute today? And why didn't you bring any guards today? And why didn't you let Lu come out with me? Are you going to help me carry the things I buy later? Her voice turned shy. I'll be embarrassed if I let the great prince be my porter. Then she turned into a roar. I'm warning you, Xiao, if you keep pretending to be a mute, I'll... Watch out. Xiao suddenly reached out and pulled her to him. Before she could react, she threw herself at him and bumped into him. Fortunately, Xiao reached out to hold her. Otherwise, she would have been embarrassed in public. And at this time, a speeding carriage ran past the place where she was standing. Pang Zhijing was still in shock as she looked at the roaring carriage. She couldn't help but widen her eyes. She had almost seen the king of hell. At this moment, Xiao pulled her out of his arms. His expression was very ugly. How can you bump into someone's carriage when you're just walking? Pang Zhijing, good for you. Pang Zhijing knew she was in the wrong. Plus, she hadn't calmed down yet. She lowered her head and looked like she was wronged but didn't dare to resist. Xiao originally wanted to say a few more words to teach her a lesson, but seeing her like this, he didn't want to. Moreover, at this time, the people around them were pointing at them. His face darkened, and he pulled her forward. Pang Zhijing also felt the children next to her were laughing at her for not looking where she was walking. It was too embarrassing to stay here for long. At this moment, she trotted after Xiao pulled her away. Are you still not going to focus on walking in the future? Xiao threatened her as he walked. Pang Zhijing didn't dare to refute. Will you still argue with me in the future? She continued shaking her head. Will you be willful and making trouble in the future? She shook her head. Good girl. The corners of Pang Zhijing's mouth twitched. Why did it feel like he was walking a cat? Was it her thought? However, she didn't know what kind of festival it was today, but there were a lot of people coming and going. Fortunately, Xiao was holding her wrist tightly. Otherwise, based on the density of the crowd, they would have been separated at any moment. The skin under his palm was delicate and soft. Her wrist was so slender that it seemed like it would break if he used any force. When they reached an empty place, Xiao let go of her hand. He put his hands behind his back and opened them quietly. He didn't know why, but his palms were sweating and his heart was beating faster. He couldn't help but wonder if he had been lacking exercise recently. Peng Zhijing, who breathed in the fresh air, relaxed. She turned around and saw Xiao whose ears were red. She wondered if he was too hot. No wonder his palms were so hot just now. Thinking about how the two of them had been quietly holding hands, she couldn't help but feel her body heat up. So the two of them stood side by side uncomfortably, pretending to be admiring the scenery. But there was really nothing to see here. Peng Zhijing fanned herself with her sleeve, then turned around and asked, "Where are we going later?" "No destination." "What? Did you call me out just to wander around?" Peng Zhijing couldn't help but raise her voice. Xiao expressed his helplessness at her suddenly raising her voice. He turned and glanced at her. "Then where do you want to go?" He had wanted to bring her out to buy clothes, but now that he thought about it, he could make it the next time they came out. He didn't have to buy anything today. If Peng Zhijing knew that he was so willful, she would probably bleed. Peng Zhijing took a deep breath and told herself to calm down, and not to argue with him. He was just a rich kid who didn't know anything. She should be magnanimous and let him off. She thought about it seriously and suddenly had a flash of inspiration. "Do you still remember the fruit wine we drank last time? I want to try it now." Ever since she drank that taste, she couldn't forget it because it felt like a modern cocktail. It made her feel a little nostalgic. Xiao frowned slightly and seemed to be hesitating. "Are you sure you want to drink it now?" "Yes, yes, and yes." She nodded heavily. Seeing him in a difficult position, she was especially happy. The feeling of going against him was simply too great. Xiao thought that she had been frightened by the carriage just now and drinking some wine could calm her down. He threw away the hesitation in his heart and turned around to leave. Hey, where are you going?" He really turned around and left without saying a word. Xiao stopped and looked back at her. His tone carried a bit of disdain. "Didn't you want to drink? What are you still standing there for? Hurry up and follow me." After saying that, he continued to turn around and walk away. Peng Zhijing's heart was happy and she immediately followed him eagerly. In the end, after many turns, they were far away from the bustling city. They entered an alley and exited an alley. It was almost dizzying for her. They walked from evening to night, and just when she couldn't walk anymore, the two of them stopped in front of a small rundown house in the innermost part of the alley. Peng Zhijing was puzzled as she looked at the place. It was really down and out. If Xiao hadn't brought her here, she wouldn't have been able to find this place. The surroundings were dark, and only the lanterns on both sides of the door were lit. It was a pity that the lanterns had faded over the years, but the light still gave people a warm illusion. But after Peng Zhijing took a good look at the surroundings, she suddenly jumped away and pointed at the person beside her. "Xiao, are you planning something bad? Let me tell you, I'm not stupid. I won't help you count the money after being sold." Xiao had been silent since they arrived here. When he heard her question, he looked at her in annoyance. "You're so stupid that you need me to do it personally?" With her intelligence being doubted, Peng Zhijing glared at him angrily. Xiao didn't continue to pester her and said to her, "Go knock on the door." "Why should I go knock? Why don't you go?" she said unhappily. Xiao glanced at her and she subconsciously shrunk her neck. "I'll knock then." Chapter 12:17. Peng Zhijing walked forward and timidly knocked on the door. As soon as she knocked, the door shook. She thought that the door was not solid and would fall down with a knock, so she immediately ran back to Xiao's side to hide. During this time, she saw the ridicule in Xiao's eyes. She bared her teeth at him. In any case, even if he laughed at her for being timid, she would not knock on the door again. If it was smashed, who would she cry to? However, at this time, the mottled wooden door shook and then with a creaking sound, it slowly opened from the inside. This atmosphere, this sound, this environment, why did it feel like a haunted house? Don't be fooled by her usual courage, her heart was very fragile. At this time, she was tightly holding on to Xiao's sleeve, ready to pull him away at any time. Xiao saw that she was scared to this extent and did not feel sympathy. Instead, he felt it was funny. At the same time, the wooden door had been laboriously opened, and a head poked out from inside. It was an old woman with a face full of wrinkles. The hand on the door handle was also frighteningly old. She looked at the two of them with vigilance, but when she saw Xiao, she was slightly surprised and impatiently walked out. "Your Highness, why are you here?" After asking, she looked at Peng Zhijing, who was tightly clinging to Xiao. Her eyes revealed a puzzled and pleasantly surprised expression. "And this is?" "Granny Run, let's go in first." Xiao interrupted her action of constantly looking at Peng Zhijing, and then took the lead to walk in. Peng Zhijing felt that this person was a bit eccentric at first glance, but listening to her words and actions, she was very well behaved. Her voice was also gentle, unlike her appearance that gave people the feeling of an evil mother-in-law. Xiao walked first, but she was still a bit scared. She pulled on his sleeve and followed closely, like a child afraid of being lost. Xiao lowered his head to look at her tightly clinging hand, and slightly hooked his lips into a smile. A flirtatious look flashed across his eyes and then disappeared. Peng Zhijing's whole body was in a state of alert, but she felt that Xiao seemed to be very familiar with this place. From the moment he entered until now, he did not hesitate to walk inside, and would also remind her to be careful of the potholes under her feet. Because of this, she slowly relaxed and had the energy to observe her surroundings. Although the outside looked very dilapidated, the inside was very clean and tidy, so there weren't many utensils. However, it could be seen that the owner was very good at decorating. There were many small wine jugs, small flowers, and all kinds of small trinkets. She was dazzled by the sight. If it weren't for Xiao taking care of her, she was afraid that she would have tripped again because she didn't pay attention to the road. But what made her feel a little strange was that the person called Granny Ren, from the moment she entered the door until now, she had been staring at her, especially her hand that was pulling on Xiao's sleeve. She subconsciously pulled the sleeve even tighter. However, she discovered that the eyes of the person called Granny Ren were becoming brighter and brighter, as if they were equipped with light bulbs. Her heart became even more flustered. No way. Did she really come to the thieves' lair? "What's wrong?" Xiao asked. "Granny Ren is so fierce," she whispered. "Don't talk nonsense." Xiao glared at her. "Sob, sob, sob, you're so fierce." Xiao pulled open the floral curtain with great familiarity and walked in. There was an oil lamp inside, so it was brighter than outside. Xiao pulled his sleeve out of her hand and said in a bad mood, "Didn't you say you wanted to drink wine? I brought you here, but you look like I'm going to sell you. What are you thinking in your head?" Peng Zhijing pouted and turned her eyes to the side. He lectured her in front of someone she didn't know and didn't give her any face at all. She had a small temper. How could Xiao not see what she was thinking? He pointed at Granny Run and said to her, "Granny Run isn't an outsider. The wine you drank before was brewed by her." Peng Zhijing was surprised. She turned her head and looked at Granny Run with curiosity. She always felt that people who knew how to brew wine were very powerful because she had a relative who knew how to brew wine. She had been influenced by him since she was young, so she more or less knew about wine. When Peng Zhijing looked at Granny Run was also looking at her. When His Highness asked her to let go, although his tone was a bit bad, she could see that His Highness cared about this girl very much. Otherwise, he wouldn't have waited until they entered the door. She smiled kindly and said, "This girl doesn't need to be afraid. This old woman makes wine for a living. Usually not many people come here, so it's a bit desolate. Please don't mind." Peng Zhijing finally understood what it meant to not judge a book by its cover. This Granny Run was really kind and amiable. She wasn't fierce at all. On the contrary, the person sitting next to her was fierce. "You haven't eaten dinner yet, right? If you don't mind, you can eat here." Granny Ren's tone was very polite and could be said to be cautious. Peng Zhijing was not used to it. She turned her head and asked Xiao with her gaze. Xiao ignored her. She didn't know when he took the jade pendant from his waist and was playing with it. She had no choice. The other party was still waiting for a reply, so she immediately turned her head to Granny Run and said obediently, "We walked all the way here and haven't eaten yet. If we don't cause trouble for you, There's no need. We can go out and find a place to eat. When Granny Wren heard this, she quickly waved her hand. It's no trouble, no trouble. Wait a moment. This old woman will be done soon. As she spoke, she quickly went into the kitchen, afraid that the two would go back on their words. Peng Zhijing looked in the direction Granny Wren left, and couldn't help but blink. What's going on? She stretched out her elbow and poked the person next to her. What's your relationship with this person? Why do I feel like she's afraid of you? This isn't called being afraid. If you don't know how to use words, don't use them, Xiao said coldly. After being choked by him, Peng Zhijing turned her head and didn't want to pay attention to him. This was too much. He didn't even give her any face outside. Xiao saw that she only left the back of her head to him, and couldn't help but smile. Recently, he seemed to have spoiled her to the point of spoiling the roof. Granny Wren was my mother's wet nurse when she was still a young miss of an official's family. While she was sulking, she suddenly heard him explain himself. She forgot that she was still angry and turned her head to ask in surprise, wasn't your mother's entire family raided back then? At that time, Granny Wren happened to have something to do back home. Moreover, my mother had returned the indenture contract to her a long time ago. So Granny Wren wasn't affected when her family was raided. Xiao replied calmly. Peng Zhijing pursed her lips. Then why is she here? Xiao lowered his eyes. With his back to the firelight, his expression couldn't be seen clearly. Granny Wren used to dote on my mother very much. My mother's family encountered an unforeseen event. When she found out that my mother had entered the palace, she found a place here to accompany her. Granny Wren made a living by brewing wine. Later, after my mother was promoted to noble lady, she got in touch with Granny Wren, and the two of them started to interact. Granny Wren really is a good person. Peng Zhijing sighed. However, when she spoke, she saw that there seemed to be a flash of sadness in his eyes and couldn't help but be stunned. Chapter 12:18. When Peng Zhijing tried her best to blink and look again, she couldn't see the emotions in his eyes. There was only calmness. Xiao continued. Mother liked to drink Renpo's wine from a young age. Renpo mainly made wine for my mother to send into the palace. At that time, your mother suffered so much. She must be happy to be able to reunite with her wet nurse. Peng Zhijing said softly. Yes. Xiao's voice suddenly became low. It was a pity that mother's status was too low back then. Wine was rarely sent to her. At that time, fruit wine became my mother's only pastime. She usually drank it sparingly. Sometimes, she would take it out to smell the fragrance of the wine. Peng Zhijing was stunned. If noble Lady Luo's life back then was so difficult, it could be imagined what his childhood was like. It was fortunate that he was able to grow up. She suddenly understood why he had become like this. It was all forced by the circumstances back then. After Xiao finished speaking, he suddenly realized that he had unknowingly said the words buried in his heart. In all these years, this was the first time he had told someone about his mother's past. Ever since his mother had passed away, anything related to her had become a taboo in his memory. He would not easily mention it. Perhaps it was because today, smelling the familiar wine fragrance in the air, he had forgotten himself. He raised his head and happened to meet her eyes that were filled with indescribable heartache. His heart paused slightly as if he was surprised. However, he suddenly laughed. What's with that look? Are you pitying me? I'm not. Peng Zhijing immediately shook her head. She wondered if she had been too obvious and hurt his self-esteem. Children who grew up in that kind of environment were usually very sensitive. At this time, the door creaked as if someone was pushing in from outside. Peng Zhijing jumped in fright, and immediately moved to his side. Someone's coming in? Xiao was very calm. Maybe Uncle Wang is back. We sold quite a few sugar figurines today. Business is much better than a few days ago. An old voice came from afar. Heavy footsteps could be heard, as if he was carrying heavy weights. It was a little strenuous, but it couldn't hide the cheerful tone and the humming of a song. Something was put down heavily, and then the sound of footsteps approached. Old woman tonight. Before she could finish her words, the old man entered the room and saw Xiao. He was instantly delighted. "Your Highness, you're here." Xiao's face immediately turned cold. "Uncle Wang, why are you back so late again? Didn't I tell you that I will give you enough money to live on so that you don't have to go out and suffer?" It was Peng Zhijing's first time seeing Xiao caring for others. It didn't seem out of place at all. Instead, it felt cute and real. Uncle Wang chuckled and patted his shoulders. "We don't need much money to live. Running a small business can also exercise our bodies. Didn't you see? This old man's body has become much healthier." Xiao had no choice but to give up. Uncle Wang glanced at the table, then turned and walked into another room. "Wait here, I'll get you some wine. It's rare for us to come here today, so let's get drunk." Hearing the noise, Grandma Wang came out and said to everyone, "Wait a moment, the dishes will be served soon. Let this old man drink with you later." Grandma Wang immediately went back in after speaking. Uncle Wang took out the wine pot and placed it on the table. Just as he was about to say something, he looked up and saw Peng Zhijing sitting quietly beside Xiao. He couldn't help but narrow his eyes to take a closer look. Where did this little girl come from? Peng Zhijing immediately shrank to Xiao's side. Where did this old man come from? Xiao patted the back of her hand and comforted her. "Don't be afraid, this is Grandma Wang's husband. He used to be a steward in my mother's residence." He then said to Uncle Wang, "This is Peng Zhijing. You can call her Zhijing." "Hello, Uncle Wang." The people here were his few remaining family members. Peng Zhijing's fear was swept away and she greeted them sweetly. Good. This little girl is so pretty. Your Highness is so lucky. Come, try this old woman's new hong." Uncle Wang poured wine for the two of them. Xiao took her cup and said, "Uncle Wang, get her some fruit wine." Uncle Wang slapped his forehead. "Right, I forgot. Fruit wine is more suitable for women. This old man will get it for you." At this moment, Grandma Wang came out with the dishes. Peng Zhijing looked at the simple dishes on the table. They were either stir-fried vegetables or braised tofu. There was no oil at all. She wasn't picky about food, but she didn't know if Xiao would be able to get used to it. However, it turned out that she was thinking too much. Xiao naturally picked up the food and ate it without any hesitation. As they spoke, the room became very lively. There was the smell of fireworks. At the table, Uncle Wang and Grandma Wang kept putting food on his plate. Even though he was a clean freak, he didn't mind at all. He didn't refuse any of them. Peng Zhijing thought it was very strange, but she could only keep these questions to herself. She would ask him about it when she had the chance. However, the fruit wine was really delicious. Her attention was drawn to it. "This fruit wine is slightly sour and bitter. I didn't expect Miss Zhijing to like it. Perhaps because she was more familiar with it. Grandma Wang was not as reserved as she was at the beginning." Peng Zhijing drank a few cups of wine and relaxed. She smiled and said, "I liked to eat sweet and sour things when I was young, so this wine is to my taste. His Highness said just now that he brought you here to get the wine. When it's time to leave, this old woman will pick a few bottles for you to take with you," Grandma Wang said with a smile. "Then I'll have to trouble you." Peng Zhijing quickly thanked her. Grandma Wang waved her hand and didn't mind at all. "You're welcome. This old woman brewed this wine for herself. His Highness doesn't like it either." "Is that so?" Peng Zhijing subconsciously looked at the person who was drinking with Uncle Wang. She clearly saw him drinking a lot in front of the grave. At this moment, Grandma Wang explained, "His Highness doesn't like the taste, but every year on the anniversary of Miss Death, he would drink a few cups with Mississippi. For the rest of the time, he basically doesn't touch it." Peng Zhijing finally understood. So that's why. At this moment, a strong wind blew outside, as if it was going to rain again. "Old man, don't drink anymore. Come with me to clean up those salted vegetables. I forgot to bring them in today." Grandma Wang immediately called Uncle Wang out. Uncle Wang immediately put down his wine cup and followed her out. Only the two of them were left in the room. Peng Zhijing was drinking to her heart's content when Xiao's faint voice rang in her ears. "Do you know who Southern Blue sent this gift?" Peng Zhijing blinked. How could she know? Xiao didn't wait for her to answer. He said directly, "Yu Qingxi." This name sounded familiar. Xiao explained, "The only son of the prime minister whom you had an affair with." You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.